What the hell was that? I know, James Bond.
I like that you know that. But there was a motorcycle chase, right?
Yeah.
That was early James Bond. That was Sean Connery era James Bond. I was playing the jazz flute, but I had to be off camera because I didn't have a camera set up in the jazz flute area.
Well, you need to get that jazz flute camera going.
I bet you didn't know I played jazz flute. Hey Dale, ask me and say I bet did you know I played jazz flute?
I was gonna say if you have a jazz flute area, you might as well have a jazz flute sound. I mean,
but did you know I played jazz flute?
I'm never surprised by what you play. Of course.
Really, Travis? You play jazz flute?
Sorry.
Oh, thank you. He was waiting. He was waiting for you to set him up, Dale.
I'm terrible. Sorry. I
dabble.
I dabble.
All right.
Well, mine was motorcycle sounds. Yes. I couldn't get the bike up here, so I just played some video.
Nice. Of you on the bike?
Would have been awesome if you'd actually mic'd up the bike.
I was thinking about how to do that, but I didn't think too hard about it, and so video is the call.
So you're using
audio
technology
from the video, huh?
So you're using technology as a middleman to bring us the sound.
It was a lot easier than getting the bike up here.
Right. So. Hey everybody, welcome. It's Saturday night once again. This is Outside the Inn. We are the Travis Larson Band. Tonight would have been the night that. So I was really excited about this all year long until the whole year went to pot. but this weekend, I had booked last night and tonight at this little pub, the Libertine, where you guys know I do these little solo shows and I get friends to jam, and sometimes Jen plays with me, and sometimes guys from out of town will come and play, and so they also have every year. Normally this Saturday they would have the Morro Bay Lighted Boat Parade, where all the boats ranging from people with kayaks to ranging to big, like Rodney Dangerfield's boat in Caddyshack, like everything in between, people with little rafts and stuff. And they all decorate their boats and light them and everything. And then they have a parade and then they pick the winner. And it's usually some guy with like a little teeny aluminum boat who goes completely overboard and makes something crazy out of his little, it's usually something that's kind of charming versus the guy with all the money. So the thing is, the boat parade every year starts at 6:00 and it's usually over around 7:00. It just goes for about an hour or so. And so this little place of Libertine that I was doing these solo shows, the whole back of the stage and the whole side of the club is a window overlooking Morro Bay. So back in January, I booked this gig or these two gigs for this weekend because I was thinking, oh man, this year, this is what we'll do. I'll book a gig the night of the lighted boat parade in Morro Bay. And that way everybody can come down. We can have dinner. We can watch the lighted boats. We don't have to freeze our butts off outside, bring our folding chairs, and we can just sit in a nice dining room table, watch the boat parade, and then get up and play music for all the people. And so that's what we would be doing tonight. But we're going to talk about Sound Mind tonight.
It's exactly as wholesome and dorky as it sounds.
Yeah, but it would have been a lot of fun.
Yes, true.
And you never know who's going to show up. I mean, we've had like many a surprise guest there. The only one I don't think Larry's done that yet, but I know several friends of ours just from up the Bay Area have come down, and then Carl Roa did a run there once, and my friend Mike came down and did a night with me once, and this would be a perfect gig for Larry if like we ever get back to gigging again. That would be a place to do it. Oh, there's Werner. Werner's done some soloing there on the encores with me many times.
True.
This is the gig where anything goes. It's like I'll do a couple of like sets that are organized and professional, and then at the end, it's like the gloves are off and we just have fun. So that's what's cool about it. let's see. Tonight, so I mentioned tonight we'll talk about Sound Mind. That's the next album in the series, which I have a vague recollection of us talking about some of that early on in the Outside the In series, and I don't know if that was just kind of an overview of all our albums.
Yeah.
Or if we're just doing all these shows again.
I think we were somehow. I think it was a show and tell of my song books and the artwork and all the the notebooks and everything got touched on a little bit. Yeah.
So. Okay, that makes me feel better because
try not to repeat.
Exactly. But going back to last week, which was Rate of Change, and there was a few things I forgot last week because we went way too long. And tonight we will be at more to a reasonable time, I think, because number one, there's no photographic evidence of us recording this album. So it'll be more talking about songs and stuff.
There's a video of it.
Well, that's true, but we can make people go watch. Is there a video of it? I suppose I could go find that video.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, referencing last week, first of all, this is something I forgot to do last week. I had a Rate of Change tour, Who's the Man, based off of two people that were on the Rate of Change tour. By the way, 2 days after we finished Rate of Change, that's the day we met Jeff Beck, by the way, when I was looking through all the pictures and everything. So that was kind of fun. So that was actually, we finished recording and then we drove down to Santa Barbara for that show. And that was like the first out of the studio little celebratory, let's go do something.
Wow.
Hey, there's Teddy Kumpel. Hi, Teddy Kumpel.
Hi, Teddy Kumpel.
Teddy's
Teddy, he's our man. If he can't do it, nobody can.
Teddy's a ridiculously good guitar player who plays with Joe Jackson and many others and has some great music out there. And Teddy and I cut heads on Lead Boots with Mike Keneally at the X Jam, which was the last gig I played.
Yeah.
And Teddy was ridiculous. There's a great picture of Teddy owning the whole stage. Like he was the biggest rock star in that jam. I was going to say though, okay, so my Rate of Change tour, Who is the Man? Two people that were involved with the Rate of Change tour, or that we crossed paths with at gigs, I should say, on the Rate of Change tour. Who's the Man? This is a kind of a weird comparison because they're not the same instrument, but kind of similar eras. Who's the Man? Zakk Wylde or Dee Snider?
Oh, brother. That's a dumb question.
I'll go.
It's
Dee Snider. Yeah. Anybody who keep a straight
really?
face and do Christmas songs like to the House of Blues.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an interesting. See,
Zakk Wylde smells real bad.
well, I think not anymore.
Well, that's my impression on Who's the Man. So there you go. I
Not
suspect
anymore.
he does not.
Travis has gone and checked it out recently.
You snuggled up to Zach's beard recently?
Well, he's off the sauce, so I think everything is leveled out now. I don't know if I'm willing to put an opinion in here. I'll just let you guys. You guys give me the controversial ones.
I don't think anyone's going to hurt us for having opinions over Zakk Wylde versus Dee Snider.
Yeah.
Well, one of them might.
Yeah, 'cause I'm sure they're tuning in.
So, Teddy Kumpel said Jennifer for the win.
That's right.
Yeah. Yes. There you go.
He's a badass. He stood up to Congress and stuff with the
That's what Holly says. Holly says D because he spoke up with Zappa against the bullshit.
Yeah. I watched that thing a bunch of times. It's really he's a very well-spoken gentleman and very intelligent and an interesting character.
I just watched that doc last night.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I came away with is, first of all, whenever I think, we're
talking about the new Zappa movie, right?
Yes.
Just to be clear for people.
Yep. Yes. Yep. So since we're saying Dee Snider is badass for standing up to Congress and censorship, or a soft version of it, Zappa, of course, is famous for doing that. And that is a rabbit hole. I went down that rabbit hole a couple months ago just because I appreciate people who can be articulate that way. And Zappa was always that guy. That's the thing I came away with, is how he was just always knew exactly who he was and such an accurate communicator. It's not just that he was blunt and he didn't care. He was super concise and accurate in saying what he meant to say, you know? And
right. Yeah.
as somebody who always takes 3 times to say what I'm trying to say, I admire that.
Yeah.
Gino says the same thing.
Absolutely.
Gino says, D, he helped save rock and roll with Zappa and John Denver.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Oh, the irony of that, right?
Yep.
Teddy says it's a fantastic doc. I need to see this. In fact, that should be like, since Dale's already watched it, we should catch up on this, Jen.
Yes, agreed. Along with all of the other TV viewing we're supposed to catch up on.
Here's the thing: is Jen and I are cheap, so if we're going to buy a movie, nothing against the Zappa Foundation, but if we're going to buy a movie, we'll probably both watch it.
Right.
Jen Marie says, I agree, Jen. I was a little too close to Zach.
No.
Who said that?
Marie.
Oh, okay.
Mary. Yeah.
Sorry, Mary.
Mary is, oh, by the way, that reminds me, Mary's birthday was this last week. My birthday was on Monday, and
Larry's was 2 days ago.
Larry's was 2 days ago. There's a lot of birthdays this last week.
A lot of Sagittarians.
I literally last night, so there were many desserts, of course. I've just been eating. I'm eating my weight in food every day. As long as there's
That's
COVID.
Not that much.
At least it's food.
But I'm trying to, it's exponentially growing, right?
At least it's your weight.
Right.
Right. I like though how you had to specify food, not I'm eating my weight in food, not insert something else weird here.
But
I eat my own scabs.
I don't wash myself regularly. This goes back to the previous comment, right? Anyway, so I just last night, Jen got me this giant cupcake on my birthday, but I also had a bunch of other stuff on my birthday because, full disclosure, TLB hung out at Jen's house on my birthday Monday. And so there was like a lot of, fattening stuff to eat. And then I froze like half of the Thanksgiving meal and then defrosted that this week. So I still had that. So I've been having Thanksgiving meals and birthday desserts all week long. But last night I finished the very last. Jen got me this giant cupcake for my birthday, and I finally had that last night. So I'm finally officially out of birthday celebration food. But I wanted to thank everybody for all the lovely wishes on my Facebook. There's a lot on there. I really appreciate it. It's silly and it's humbling, and it's. So I went through and I try and at least give everybody a little, an emoji. Is that what the kids call them? Emojis?
Yeah.
Or hearts or likes or whatever they are. I go
Smiley facey thing,
click on the hearts. Yeah, I try and respond to pretty much everybody that I know, But hey, there's Johnny Agostino. Hey, Johnny.
Hey, Johnny.
How you doing, buddy? So anyway, thanks for all the birthday wishes. And what else was I going to say about that? I don't remember. Does anybody have anything before we get started on this sound mind business?
Holly had asked earlier, like much earlier, what bike I'm riding. And I just happen to have the owner's manual here. It's the
Oops.
Hang on. Wait, coming back.
Hang on. I was trying to do this and I closed it.
Yeah.
It's a Honda.
Say what it is again.
The Honda Rebel 250. 1996.
Ooh.
Same year as my truck.
Because she's a rebel.
Yep.
So Jen,
I named the bike.
Can we talk about the neighborhood today, Jen, a little bit?
No.
You
Slow down.
Jen's been, riding her motorcycle around the neighborhood, like trying to get more comfortable because she's never had a motorcycle before. And so you do that, right? And so she's been, riding through the neighborhoods and up and down the streets and stuff, and she's learning how to shift. And she goes by my house. We've mentioned Jen and I live up the street from each other. So I hear
them. Crab cookies today in my saddlebags.
Jen brought me some coffee cookies today. They're like some kind of coffee chocolate, and you know how I like the coffee chocolate, Dale.
Yes.
So anyway, so she stops by today, but I hear her going by throughout the day. Sometimes I hear like, and I know it's probably Jen. So she's learning how to shift and stuff. She's not going fast. She's going super slow. In fact, I have not seen her yet break the speed limit. But she came up on some neighbor guy today who saw her, and he's just like, whoa, 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 like bring it down.
Wow.
And I think here's the theory. The theory was, and this goes back to the theory that TLB has always dealt with, when we load into a venue that's maybe smaller, but we have big rigs, like Jen's got a huge amp rig and the sound guy is already concerned.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, you haven't heard how loud we're going to be. It's about quality of sound. It's not about volume. Yep. I want to sound really good, but I'm not, it's not about, I'm not going to blow you out of the place. And so it's much like that, where I think he heard her revving the motorcycle because she's learning how to shift, and she's revving just a little bit past the mark, so it's like, and I think he heard that and thought she was just hauling ass.
Right. Like, dude, I'm going 15 miles an hour. It's okay.
Yeah, she's doing like 15 and a 25, and he's like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
This is a cranky, I don't know. It sounds like a cranky old man, but it's a reaction to cranky old men. There's a bunch in my neighborhood, a bunch of these careful children at play things, on intersections of streets, and kind of like just out in the road enough that it's going to get in your way. And I just want to have a clever thing to hang around next to the little silhouette of the child that says, "Careful, cars will kill you. Stay out of the road." You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's not on me to stay out of the road if I'm going the speed limit. Teach a kid not to run out in the... Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, I went into a different neighborhood today, actually, and I was, spreading my radius a little bit, and tons of those signs everywhere, just on like every other house. And I was like, ugh, I'm out of here. So anyway.
Yeah, they're just everywhere. And I get it. Obviously, be careful.
Huh?
What'd you say the last thing?
I said there was a black cat and all kinds of crazy slow down children. I'm like, okay, this seems like bad omeny stuff. I'm going somewhere else.
Right.
So I took crab cookies. Now is the end of it.
In Jen's defense, though, she was not speeding or even close to driving recklessly, but she might have been shifting recklessly for the bike.
It wasn't even that bad, Not. Anyways, okay, enough of that.
All right. Sorry, I was I just saw somebody, Hella mentioned that she just got one of the new Travis Larson Band swags for her birthday.
Nice.
Oh, neat.
And so real quick, I was going to try and find that link because we have new swag that we mentioned last week, but I haven't mentioned it this week. So real quick, I'm copying that. I'll post it in the chat here. But you can also find it in the description of the video. We have now, in additional T-shirts and stuff, we have the TLB Morris Circle sweatshirts and women's shirts and all kinds of stuff that we didn't have before. So let's see. I think this link will work in the chat. If it doesn't, you can go find it in the description. But here it is. So that's in the chat, everybody.
Nice. Hey, if I do make signs to hang around the signs, Holly had a good idea for one right here. Drive like your kids live here. Yay, I don't have any.
Oh.
That'll be one of my proposed signs.
And what did Gino say? Oh, the bicycle gang. That's going to be... Okay, so Kip is who, sold me this bike. And since then, he's gotten a new... I forget what it is, a Honda something, 3000 something. And he keeps texting me like, when are we going to get our motorcycle gang together? When are we going to go riding? I'm like, okay. Gino said, we should start our own biker gang, Progs of War. So that'll be me and Kip's biker gang.
Nice.
Progs of War.
Progs of War. That's the way Ed McMahon would be like, progs of war, yes. Progs of war, yes. So.
We'll have to get some video of me and Kip and our motorcycle gang. It'll just be the two of us, but it'll be okay.
Right. Okay, so Jen, you got anything before I get into this? You got a joke of the week?
Oh, yeah. Did you hear about the mediocre restaurant on the moon?
No.
It has great food, but no atmosphere.
That's pretty good. That wasn't bad, right?
No.
Wayne says war procs.
Oh yeah, instead of war pigs, that's a good one too.
Okay, so we're going to talk about rate of change tonight, which
no, we're not. We're totally not.
No, we're totally not. We're going to talk about Sound Mind, which we were talking about rate of change last week for 2.5 hours. So no, we're not. We're going to talk about Sound Mind. So Sound Mind, we mentioned every week I kind of say the same thing about these records, but I'm going to say it again. And in this instance, I really feel like rate of change was kind of like the first inkling of we really have like a completely like we got to where we kind of wanted to be production wise and everything, but kind of. And I would say Sound Mind is the one where we actually got there, in my opinion. Right? Like Sound Mind is kind of the beginning of the big boy albums, right?
I sort of agree with that. Yeah.
I would agree with that.
As far as, I mean, there's obviously we learn something every time, but Sound Mind was like a record where I felt like, I felt good about all the songs. I felt good about the production. I felt good about guest spots. Just the artwork was amazing, and that was this was also, I think, the first artwork that was 100% Jen completely, right?
Yeah.
Like every single bit of it. Not that 99% of everything else is still her doing all the setup and everything, but this was like, so Sound Mind cover art, which here let me go share the screen to the merch page here. And we can take a look at that. I mentioned we don't have stills because I think we were just like so caught up with making the record at that point.
Well, I think I think that was the first time I did an actual video for the recording. So I wasn't taking photographs. I was shooting video the whole time. So you can find that on our videos page on the website.
So I was going to mention too, I mean, we have some reviews for all the records, but this was we had a great review here from Progression Magazine, but also I mentioned Matt Blackett last week, who did the Guitar Player Magazine cover Eddie Van Halen tribute that came out last week. And I mentioned that he and I had a really long, great conversation just about Eddie and life in general and all that stuff. So Matt, this is before we knew Matt, wrote this review of us. There's just a snippet of the review here, but we were featured in the editor's top 3 of, was it 2011? With the album Sound Mind. So they used to have a thing called editor's top 3 where they would pick, I mean, it's self-explanatory, right? And so I'll just read Matt's little bit here. Silky bends, sweet legato lines, and tuneful shred characterize Larson's playing on these 12 cuts. Some stellar moments include the sick lines on the opener Nevermoor, the swooping whammy. Sorry, I'm trying to read this. The swooping whammy work Down on Victory, and the cornucopia of tunes on Forest for the Trees. Larson is expertly backed by drummer Dale Moon and bassist Jennifer Young. That's just a quote. That's not obviously the whole thing, but that was our first Guitar Player Magazine attention, other than some stuff that we had when it was like paid advertisements. We had some stuff in the early 2000s where I think we were part of an endorser. Like they did these things where we were part of this kind of DVD advertisement where they put them inside the magazine, and there were some Electro Voice ads that had us involved in those. And that was like the only thing that we'd been in any kind of major press. We're, like I say, we're Progression magazine and some magazines like that have done some stuff on us, but a major magazine like Guitar Player magazine, other than Jen being in Bass Player back in 1996, but of course that's Jen. That wasn't me and Dale, the lowly, lowly me and Dale. So to have them out of nowhere, and if people understand how press works, and we took out no advertising in that magazine, it's a pretty crazy story because he wrote that article. He put us in his editor's top 3. I used to subscribe to Guitar Player magazine, but it would still go to my parents' house because a lot of my mail goes there because it's kind of a place when you're on the road your whole life. It's just good to have a solid place for your mail to go. And so my dad calls me and says, I'm looking through this Guitar Player magazine and it's got your album in here. And he's kind of matter of fact about it. He's like, they got your album in here, Soundmind. It's under something called Editor's Top 3 Picks or something like that. And I just immediately, much like I did when he told me that David Lee Roth had been kicked out of Van Halen, I said, no, that's not true. You're wrong. I'm like, you're looking at something else. You're making a mistake. So it's just something. And he goes, no, this is Guitar Player magazine. And there's Editor's Top 3, and it says Travis Larson Band Soundmind, and there's an article on it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And so Jen and I, of course, run out, check out these magazines as we do when we find out we're in magazines. And that was one of the conversations I will share that Matt and I had. Because Matt was so proud of the Van Halen article. And it's such a great tribute. He was calling me as he went to Barnes and Nobles to get a couple copies, which he hadn't done in like decades. Right.
Right.
And he's like, cool. I'm actually at a bookstore picking up, copies of this magazine. I said, dude, the last time I did that was the article that you wrote about us.
That's great.
So it was really fun, but I was like, yeah, every time Jen and I have ever been in any kind of a magazine, we'll be like, what bookstore's open right now? We got to go find them, We'll be digging through piles of magazines going, do they have the new bass player yet? Or do they have the new guitar player yet? It's, you never forget being a dorky kid. And we're always, I wouldn't even say it's a matter of forgetting. It's just a matter of we're still just dorky kids, period. And so, anyway, that was like a big deal with the whole Soundmind record. But starting with the Soundmind record, I mentioned the whole art design and everything, and Jen actually created Rorschachs for the album cover, like a whole bunch of them, right? I don't know if do you have any of that stuff tonight?
I do. I mean, we did go over this before, so I'm not going to go through them all. But here is the very original. So it was just
hang on, sorry.
Paper.
There you are. Wrong button.
Nice.
You should really frame that.
I know. It's cool.
This is the original. So yeah, you just like splatter some shit on there and fold it and then open it later and that's what. But yes, there are several. We ended up doing the postcards for this release. I did a series of 3, so it would be like little Rorschach cards. So you could hold them up and go, "What do you see?" And how messed up are you? So here are some of the others.
Right.
This one's pretty cool. I think this one got used on one of the postcards. And then this one actually ended up in the inside, but a split version of it with the CD kind of in the middle. I don't have a CD here to show you that, but anyway, it's like that turned out to be looking like a little butterfly thing.
Yeah.
And it could be this way. Could be this way. Could be that way.
I remember you and I thought some of those looked a little bit like Silence of the Lambs, right, Jen?
Yeah.
They're pretty and they're bright, but some of the weird shapes.
Yeah. I don't know what it says about the maker of them.
Right.
It's the interpreter that's under scrutiny, not the maker.
Glenn says, I'm tripping.
Those are good shirts too, that artwork.
Oh yeah, the Sound Mind shirts. Yeah. Yeah. That would be a cool shirt. Someone said to get maybe the full, just the Sound Mind thing on a hoodie would be kind of interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I vote that.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, as the next year progresses and we continue to sit at home and wait until we can slowly emerge, more and more of those things might keep happening.
Right. Yeah. I will, before we get into the breaking down the album, I will say this record was particularly difficult for me. And as always, I think the album titles and a lot of the stuff that goes on Sound Mind, I was trying to basically hang on to my mind through the making of this record. And coincidentally, today is my mom's birthday. And hey, Mom. But yes, she was struggling with breast cancer for 4 years prior, and she passed away in 2011, right after Sound Mind was released. We had a tour booked. The record came out. My mom passed away, and we had to go do that tour. And it was really, really, really hard. So this album has always been really close to my heart. And I kind of almost lost my mind through all of that, but we got through it, and everybody hung together. And it's kind of ironic, like I said, that Trav's like, we're going to talk about Sound Mind on Saturday. I'm like, oh, that's my mom's birthday. That's kind of weird. So
anyway. Well, one of the cool things about it, because Jen's mom didn't completely understand our world, obviously, being from like her thing was more like Elvis Presley or the Everly Brothers and those kind of things, but she knew what we were excited about, and she knew we'd gotten to be friends with Dave LaRue, and that was a big deal because she knew we loved Steve Morris and Dixie Dregs and Rush, and so she understood those things. And so I remember literally being in the living room, hanging out with your mom, me and Jen and her mom, and Dave LaRue called with the finished track. Like she was in the room when I got that call. He's like, hey, I finished that track. So I'm going to send it over. Take a look at it. And, so of course I'm just like, and your mom's like, kind of like looking like, who's he talking to? And it's like, it's Dave LaRue, and so she was part of that excitement, and she was like, oh, wow. And then she got to meet Steve and Dave, right? Like, I think maybe it was earlier that year, even maybe at NAMM.
It was a few years before. By that, she was not able to.
Okay.
But my mom and dad used to go to NAMM shows, and they got to meet. My mom actually asked Dave LaRue, "Is she any good?" I was like, "Oh my
god." Yeah, that was Jen's mom.
Yeah. Is she any good?
When it came down to it, it wasn't even like and there was a sternness to it. Like right. She had it. She was. It wasn't just a clueless question. It was It was like, is she doing the right thing? Like,
lay it on me.
She's like, you're like the best in the world, right? How does she rank?
Right. Mom. Anyways, my parents used to go to NAMM and just cruise around, and it was so cool. And I actually have, after Mom passed, Janine Morse had sent me pictures from the previous NAMM show. My mom's sitting there, at the Ernie Ball booth watching Steve Morse Band play, or Steve Morse, I should say.
And Dave.
Anyway, so she got to meet all those guys, and it was cool.
And she knew like what a big deal it was for us to be in that world, and got it. And
not to belabor that.
And I know that this record was hard for Dale too. I think a lot of us, because I was so. I mean, we're talking many years of chronic stress for me. I was not a very kind person to be around. And Dale and I had a certain amount of struggles through those years too. Somehow I ended up taking everything out on Dale. Sorry, Dale.
Drummer. What are you going to do? Drummer.
We both went through a lot during the making of this record and leading up to it and all that stuff. But I don't know. Somehow we got through it. And fortunately, he didn't I don't know, beat me up or something. So
it's not like you haven't put up with that much from me over the years. I not to belabor the heaviness of it, but I do remember it's hard to put your head around what you had to navigate with your mom is in the, what may well be, you had a sense of her final stages of that. And then you're scheduled to be on the road and whether to do it. And it's just, it's so different. It's impossible. It's unique and impossible for everybody, but it's not like three people that at work are going to understand and you're going to not be there. You're going to have a whole tour and thousands of people that you're trying to figure out, how to thread that needle and you're on the road.
Yeah. To be, make it as clear as it was. And this is, so right, like 2 weeks after is when we started that. We went out and we had Larry with us and we did all of October. I think, was it October or September? Jen? I can't remember. But
September and October. Yeah.
But I remember we were home one weekend and that's when we had the service.
Well, my family graciously postponed the service until October. Yes. Right.
Right. Like it was like a month to the day from what I remember. So that was how in the middle of it we were. And, it was like, that's such a weird time because obviously you go out there and, for a portion of the day, you're having a fabulous day and, and then you're not, but there's so much, with all the people we're hanging out with tonight, there's so much love out there and so many, so much great vibe that you can't help but be playing new music for people that you love and having a great time. And then you then things hit you again. And then you walk back into that situation. It's this weird, like hot, cold, just balance, or not even balance, but like clash almost. So I got the COVID brain. So I'm not so eloquent these days. Anyway, that was
no Dee Snider, Travis. My word.
But we were incredibly proud of this record. And, and Jen did her first solo bass bit on this record too, which there's a little bit of that.
Yeah, and I think that was during the writing process we were going through this illness and everything, and so Hush was definitely just one of those things that came out of. I don't know. Yeah, this record was there was a lot of heavy stuff going on, and but yes, it remains absolutely one of my favorites, and I think it's just got such there's a lot of just really, really great songs on this record, in my opinion. So we can start talking about the songs now, if you wish.
I was going to say, Anthony said, since you're doing album breakdowns, in 3 weeks, will you be talking about the new album? Obviously not a breakdown, but maybe a preview or at least a conversation. At least a conversation. That's about as much as there will be, but yes.
Well, the new album we'll talk about. If you're talking about the future album, though. I know
the future album is what he's talking about.
Yeah, I know.
The future.
The 4-year-old new album we will be talking about. Yeah.
I remember this phase just really quick as working really hard, but being really glad that I was able to work hard. Jen mentioned that she and I were both in a hard phase, and I was sort of coming out of a really rough patch. Like we talked about Ready to Change last week, and I was overwhelmed and I just let things get away from me, and I started really trying to drag myself. This is really vague, but out of that situation in life. And I was overweight and I was just not handling stuff very well. And in the process, I also overdid things, herniated a disc, and then just had to be on my back literally for 8 months, just on my back. I'd go home from teaching and lay on my back. And anyway, so at this album, I just remember I was getting my ability to work hard back. And it was weirdly satisfying, even though it was a drain. But one of the things I really remember was the process. We started being able to click with this process we discussed last time of demoing songs and trust the whole process. Like, we didn't have to see if it was going to work to build the drums under the whole song. You could just send me skeletons of songs and I would start Frankensteining a drum demo together and email it back to you guys while you worked on your parts, and everybody's just working all the time. Yeah. The upside of that is it's productive. The downside is there's no feeling of, oh, I got my work done for the day. No matter what time it was, you knew the other two people in the band were fucking working. Like if it was 1 a.m, I'm like, well, I can probably relax, but I know Travis is not relaxed. I know Jen's not relaxing. Like, everybody's working at all times, and you can never just dial down So I thought that was
that's what this year is all about.
Yeah.
We just dialed right down.
And so then,
go ahead.
I was going to say, visual. Like, when I go back to that place and time, though, really what I remember is doing what I just talked about. I'd be at our rehearsal space, and I would get something into my computer in a way that I thought it was worth sending, but there wasn't Wi-Fi there. And so I would, about 3 times in a night, I'd get done teaching all day, and then I'd start at about 9 and go till 5 a.m. or something. But I would just, if it was before 2 a.m, I would just drive over to where my friend's drum shop was, the Drum Circuit, no longer in business, but shout out. And I would just park next to the building with my laptop and use the Wi-Fi there. And then I would text you, Trav, and then ask you what you thought of it. And then I'd head back. But about 3 times I would just peek out when I get in my car, get right up next to the side of the building, wait for a cop to show up and ask what this shady car is doing, parked right next to the building at 2 a.m. That was, for some reason, I just remember that. It'd be like, all right, I got to go email something. I got to go find the Wi-Fi. Anyway, that's my main memory of this process.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's well, maybe we'll have to remedy that this year. The Wi-Fi.
Let's get some Wi-Fi going there. Kip, stork.
Okay. Mary says she doesn't think I sleep. She says on the East Coast seems like I'm up all night. Well, I am up all night, but I do sleep. Like, I sleep, if I sleep from like 5 to noon, that's a good night's sleep, right?
Right.
I heard that phrase on a sports show the other day, that whole, people say nothing good happens after midnight. I hate that phrase so much. Nothing good happens before noon. Has anything good ever happened before noon? Before noon, seriously, morning, good stuff happens in the morning. I hate that phrase so much. Nothing good happens. Everything good happens after midnight. It's just also some bad stuff happens. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh my gosh.
Dale has a little bit of a aggression against the morning.
Yeah, you were angsty about morning.
Don't like the morning. I have no problem with morning people. It's the
Jeff Easton's right there with you, by the way.
Oh, good.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing, brother?
It's the self-righteous early morning people. Nothing good ever happens after. Fine, some people get in trouble after midnight, but most of the good stuff happens after midnight. Anyway, go ahead.
There's a song about it, right? After midnight.
There you go.
All right. First song, Travis. We ready to roll on this?
Nicholas says, TLB, you are a special and unique group to be sharing these stories with us these past 35 weeks. Very much appreciated, and one of the special experiences I will take away from 2020. Thank you very much, Nicholas.
Thank you.
It's exactly what we are trying to do, is just do something positive with 2020, and hanging out with you guys is the most positive thing we can think to do. So
I think the key word there is unique group of
right. Special is also my favorite word.
Right. In the short bus kind
of short bus kind of way.
Gino says I was born in the morning.
Right? What's that, Dale?
Gino says I was born in the morning, so no, nothing good happens then.
Eric says big breakfast happens before 12. Well, yeah, Eric, when we go to the diner after the gig on Long Island, right?
Yeah.
That's when the big breakfasts happen. I remember having breakfast with Eric like 3-4 in the morning after we got done playing at KJ Farrell's.
Yep.
That's what's so great about the Narduli's place too. Even though they are up in the morning and productive, you never feel judged. You never feel judged for getting up at 10:30 or whatever it is.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Let's get into this first tune, right?
What is the first tune?
The first tune is Nevermoor. You ready for this?
Yep.
I think if these are whole songs, I won't play them all, but we'll find out.
It shouldn't be.
And you don't get to hear the chorus. That's it.
Right. No chorus for you. No chorus for you.
Okay, so here's an interesting thing about this song. First of all, something that just occurred to me reading Matt Blackett's snippet of the guitar player review was he mentioned the guitar solo in Nevermoor. And what's interesting about that is that the guitar solo in Nevermoor is completely like me, influenced by Eddie Van Halen, literally. Like I remember Jen and I listening to something off of like either Fair Warning or Diver Down and going, we should do something kind of like that. Like it's a little bit like how the solo of that song starts kind of yeah, like it's like this almost not playing notes, kind of like jagged, weird. How did it go again, Jen?
Yeah.
So
this is why we are an instrumental band, ladies and gentlemen.
Anthony says, "You want the chorus by the album?" Anthony, you're hired as our
marketing person. You want the guitar solo? Buy the album.
But this is what's interesting about this one song. Everything else was. As is most of our albums, is I hunker down and I start writing. This song was written a year before and tracked a year before the album.
Oh, yeah, right.
Because here's the thing. We had a little window that we thought we had where Vinnie Moore was going to be able to play on that song.
Right.
And that was the plan. And this was back when UFO was just kind of coming back. Like we had done the 2009 tour with UFO. And that was their first time back in a long time. And then they were growing on that. So they were starting to tour constantly. And then I think they were even churning out new albums and stuff in that period. But I thought we had a window that I had to like really hurry up and get something together that Vinny could play on. So I literally put this song together in like a day. And then we went to the studio and Dale tracked drums to it. And we threw a rough mix together, sent it to Vinny, and then he didn't end up having time to do it. And then when it came back around, I tracked the solo, and that's why I say Jen and I were looking at it going, okay, well, I was planning on it being kind of this like super shred Vinnie Moore solo. And then, I always have a bunch of kind of Steve Morris influence. So this specifically was let's try and write or come up with more of a Van Halen vintage sounding Eddie Van Halen solo for that song. Because we just thought it would be different. It wouldn't necessarily sound like what Vinny would have done or what I would normally do. So that's I really like that solo. It's kind of a crazy, like a loose solo. But
I actually have it written here on February 23rd of that year. I'm not sure when the record came out month-wise, but it just says no Vinny, finished guitar solo or guitar lead.
And that's
like
February.
The song was tracked, and then there was some kind of like remember to do the guitar lead, no Vinny kind of thing. That was in February.
And then we didn't. I think the record came out like probably maybe August or September, right?
Yeah, it had to be because
we were touring. So So anyway, we've told this before, but that's how the name Nevermoor came out.
Yes, I have a few other little the last few times I've gone over the other titles. So one was just No More, like More.
That's pretty good too.
Yeah.
Moore would have been the way to do it, right?
Right. No more, like no more pudding. I don't know. Thick Skin. That's kind of weird. Speaking about pudding, and
That's
then
probably because we said pudding skin, right?
And then the rat, the rooster, the pig. Those are all based off of our Chinese zodiac signs.
Oh, right. Okay, there you go.
Okay. It became Nevermoor, and I will bring up too. Nevermoor as I don't think that's the title of Edgar Allan Poe poem, where the Raven, I believe it's what it's called, and the Raven always goes Nevermore, Nevermore. So in the artwork, there's actually, I specifically put a raven in our band shot to kind of reference the Nevermore aspect. And I chose Edgar Allan Poe because based on the sound mind concept, Edgar Allan Poe was like totally freaking out of his mind, right? So the crow or the raven in the band artwork referred, and I think it's the Rush Raven also. I chose the Rush Raven from the Burn Season record,
right.
And refers to the Edgar Allan Poe poem, which the raven goes Nevermore, Nevermore, like that. There you go. Those are all the weird inside stupid things that I'm like.
Yeah, I thought there was a lot of cool double and triple meanings there. I don't know if there's a wisecrack or if it's true. Holly says she has a raven and his name is Quoth. That's badass if it's true.
Wow. Yeah. Quoth the raven, Nevermore.
Yes,
Nevermore.
exactly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So are the birds, are this Hugh Syme Rush birds that are in our Burn Season record ravens, or are they crows? And what's the difference between a raven and a crow?
I think it's dependent on regional, where you're from. I think ravens are considered larger and crows are smaller, but I think, I think they're kind of the same thing. It just depends on where you're from. Like East Coasters might call them ravens and we would call them crows. I'm not entirely sure, actually.
Ravens differ from crows in appearance by their larger bill, tail shape, flight pattern, and by their large size. Ravens are as big as red-tailed hawks and are about the size of pigeons.
So I think around here we actually have ravens because our black birds are freaking huge. They are not the size of pigeons. You know what I mean?
No. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. So
also,
that's creepy.
Crows. The name for a group of crows is a murder. That's the most badass thing ever. A murder of crows.
A murder of crows. Yes.
Holly says both corvids, ravens, are bigger.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. There you go. That was the answer.
Holly really bringing the facts tonight. Thank you,
kidding.
Holly.
Yes. And somebody said a flock of ravens is called a murder.
All right. So that's Nevermoor, which also
I love playing that song live, and it's detuned. So I used to always use a detuner on that, and it was always really fun.
Yeah, you used the hip shot detuner on where you actually detune the E string, right?
I think that one was actually a pedal.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Do you have to stay detuned the whole song?
No, that's the thing. So I just use it for the dent, 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 dent parts.
It seems like you have to do the hip shot on the chorus. I
haven't played that song in so long.
I think for the heavy part, this is like what we were talking about last week, where you're trying to fill in the crunch of the rhythm guitars that doesn't exist with the trio.
Oh, yeah. So it's just an octavider. You're right.
You use an octavider and you play it higher, but with a little grunge on the octave. A little
distortion, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But then the chorus, you actually have to do a hip shot detuner to get to the low D or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, you're right.
I think so. And you just do it for that note and then you flip back.
Yeah. Well, just for the chorus.
Kind of the same thing you do with Dirty Magic.
Right, exactly.
Right? Yeah. Just for the super nerds out there that are paying attention.
I don't know. Yeah, you're right. It's an octavider, not a detuner. In my head, I push a pedal, so I think it's a detuner. But yeah, I believe it's an octavider, yeah.
Mary says, scared of them birds. That sounds very Doug Johns to me.
Yep. Hate them geese.
Hate them geese. That's an old story.
All
We'll
right.
tell it again someday.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see here. Share screen. Song number 2.
What is it?
Rise and Fall.
Oh.
So I'll mention the little bass guitar back and forth bit in there where you hear Dale plays the kick with Jen and the snare with me. That's the only thing I can think of that we actually, so the riff was already there, but we wrote that bit with Pro Tools, whereas back in the day we used to obviously just sit there and hash that stuff out. But that was our first, we're looking at the song on Pro Tools and we could chop things out and add them and figure out musically what we would play. And so that bit where Jen and I are like do do da do da da, and it goes back and forth. We actually figured that out with Pro Tools editing in the demo stage, and then learned how to play it. Whereas usually that would just be something, you could come up with. But that was a cool way to do it because we knew that riff was interesting enough to do a bunch of times, but it seemed like if you just kept doing it, it got old. And then it was like, how could we make this like cool, but not start bringing a lead part over it yet? Because it's such a heavy sounding part. And then the other inspiration for that, I think, was probably King's X, because it's like big, heavy, like riff, it's a long riff. And that's kind of a King's X thing, is they would do weird stuff like that, where they would chop things up and have these weird stops and things. And rather than actually have stops like we did in ADD, we kept it flowing, but individually we each have stops.
Just more like a counterpoint.
Yeah. Yep. Except Dale counterpoints himself.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
This song, there's better examples of what I'm about to describe, but this song is where I first started realizing a quirk in your songwriting, I thought it was a quirk, where I would be playing a thing, I'd figure out what the time signature was, and then it would transition to a different time signature, and there would be a measure of silence in a third time signature, and I would always go, it's fine, but why did we change time signatures for silence and then change again to come out of it? It was just so weird. So there's 6.5 beats of silence, which I guess is what 13/8. I'm like, fine, I guess, but why was it all silent? And then,
that would be me always going, Travis, this part needs to breathe a little bit. Just add a tiny little bit more space right there. Not concerned at all about time signature. What?
I know.
When it feels good. Okay, now.
And right. So there's that. And then there's also this other logic of, I saw Trav doing this in a duet, and he would go da 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 da, and sort of mime a part to himself.
Oh, yeah.
And I went, oh, it's not 6.5 beats. It's like I said, it's 4 wheatleys. Da 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 da, and then you explode in. And then I just kind of went, oh, if I think that way, it makes sense. But then what's really funny to me is seeing us at a small enough thing where you can see us all, like maybe at herd line, where I'm bobbing my head and Trav's doing this, and there's a silent polyrhythm happening between Travis and I, because I'm feeling it in quarter notes and he's feeling it in 3/8 notes. Anyway, so yeah, I started realizing oh, this is a thing to always check for. It could be that Jen asked to a little more breath, or it could be that Travis is thinking that he's repeating the phrase he just got done playing a certain number of times, and there's a logic to it. But I would just sit there and go, okay, 13-8 rest, on to the next section.
I remember Travis doing that. He would pick it and be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think you were counting to 7 right there, right, Travis? Da 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 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Or I don't remember.
I don't remember. I will tell you that when I hold the chord at the end of that intro, so we go da 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 da. I start counting in my head there now, and you, like Dale's saying, you'll see me doing this.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you see it on video, it looks like the video's out of sync because I'm not actually playing anything. I'm just keeping a beat with my hand.
Right.
You'll see that on the live stream concerts sometimes, because I've played a lot of this stuff on the live stream concerts, and I'll literally go da 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 da 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 da. Right.
So that's what I do, but I swear I've seen you go da 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 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1.
I've done that too. I used to do that in the old days. Yeah.
That's what melted my brain. That's when I was like, oh my God, it's 4 Wheatleys.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. That's all I have to say about that song.
I've tried to disguise it more and more now, and I even got to the point where I was trying to. Now sometimes I'll do it with my teeth, like I'll be like like in my mouth, because I feel like I'm giving it away. It's cooler as a performance if you just hold the power chord and you stand there like Pete Townsend and let it ring, and then everybody comes back in super tight without looking at each other. Yeah. Like that's a better performance than seeing everybody going, like trying to keep on track, right?
Yeah.
So I've worked hard over the years to try and, if I'm well rehearsed, you won't see me move my hand anymore, but you'll see my mouth kind of like.
Well, to me, what it struck me as was seeing Steve Morse, where if he's not playing, he's just practicing. Right? If there's 8 measures where he's not going to play, he's going to run scales.
Right.
Well, he's not really doing that, but I remember seeing him like during a drum solo, just like off by his amp running scales.
Right. Yeah.
It just reminded me of that. Anyway.
I just look at Dale.
Yeah.
Sorry. Whatever.
That's not true all the time, though.
Can you usually nail that?
We have a lot of stuff where kind of the bit is to not look at Dale, though. Like ADD is an example of that, right?
Well, not only that, but you guys.
I can kind of feel that part now, so I don't have to look at him. But it's fun to look at him too. So.
But you guys do duet shows.
Is it fun to look at Dale?
Shut up. You guys do duet shows where you get nothing visually, though.
That's true.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Then I just watch Trav's hand or his teeth going. Dang, 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 dang.
Gino says teeth drums are underrated, and Gino, by the way, is the king of the teeth drums.
I will say the other potential song title for this one was "Majority Rules."
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's a good title.
I think. Not sure.
There was something about this song where I remember going, I know exactly what to do in the solo section, and both of you were like, I don't really hear it that way, and it was to me. I was like, I'm so sure of this, and I said, no. And I emailed you the part and go, check it out. Here's what I mean. I'm not communicating right, and both of you were like, no, we do this, and I just remember going, are you high? Like, it makes perfect sense to me now, but I didn't see it that way, and I'm like, no. If two of you feel that way, then I'll come to see it. But I don't know, but I wonder if that's how Majority Rules came.
Oh yeah, you're probably right. Yeah,
and it wasn't bitter. It was just like I'll figure. Eventually, I'll see what you guys are both seeing because I don't see it right now.
Jimmy says just as impressive if you're looking at each other, but I beg to differ, Jimmy. By the way, good to see you, Jimmy.
Hey, Jimmy.
We miss you helping us with our gear on the East Coast.
Jimmy had a pretty good "Who's the Man" earlier, but I won't. Maybe we'll do it at the end.
Someone had asked earlier, Dale, what time signature is this particular song in? I know you said there's multiples, but
most of the song in my mind is just in 4. It's like, and then there's some sort of 3/4 phrasing, but on the guitar, and a few odd measures. But yeah, most of it to me is in 4.
Okay.
Yeah, we do a thing. This is kind of one of those in a way, feel wise, it would be one of those over the bar line songs, sort of maybe. Right. And the riffs are written so long You know, that one thing that drives me nuts is really short, repetitive riffs that, I mean, I don't want to say that in general, because obviously there's a lot of classics that have short, repetitive riffs. But like for me, if you're going to write an instrumental song and you're going to have a big rock riff, I try and make them somewhat, maybe a little longer than you expect and interesting. So Jen and I have maybe a big unison part that we can play together, those kind of things. Because if you do something where, especially if you're writing in 6/8, if you're writing, you know, groups of 3, and everything starts to sound very bouncy really quick, like you're out there riding a horse on the range, where everything's like, you know. And so this is an example of a song where it's, you know, got a really long, like 2 really long heavy riffs actually. One of them's kind of a semi-clean guitar sound, one of them's the big heavy distorted one, but they're both long riffs. And if you write an interesting riff to start with, then whatever you play over it is easier to deal with. That's kind of the trick, because if I come up with a riff that's maybe, you know, instead of 2 bars, maybe it's 4 or 8 bars or even an odd number. And then you write a melody over it, or even just play parts over it, then you don't have to try so hard on those parts. That's like the beauty of it, because the interesting part of the song falls on the rhythm section, and the guitar player gets to take it easy.
I see what it is.
You know, so when I'm over there going bam bam banana, and you guys are like, you know, so I try and write really long, interesting riffs so that by the end of my night, I'm not dying.
You're like,
so
all right, next.
Lost in Germany is a great long riff, Jimmy says. I don't know. Do I know Lost in Germany besides
that's next tune? Yeah, that's amazing.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Let's see. What do we got? Sorry.
I'm going to go use the restroom. No, just kidding. You'll get the joke in a second.
I already got it.
What is this song?
I was actually just
I know the song.
I was just going to pull you out of the feed.
I get it now too.
All right, next song. Stephanie got the joke. So there's a joke about Dreamcatcher, which is Dale doesn't like it.
Urban legend is Dale hates this song.
I'm not.
But your drum solo in it is amazing.
Yeah.
Anthony.
I think this all started because there was so much over enthusiasm for this song, and for Dale it was just kind of a nice song. And
yeah,
so it turned into a sarcasm thing, right?
It's kind of exactly what it was. I remember hearing this demo and really going, what's funny about it too is I totally get what's so great about this song. I hear it. I remember going, wow, this is really something. And you know, and made my demo and kind of moved on, and I got it. And then other people's reactions and genius friends of ours were going, holy crap. And it's not lost on me. I get why it's great too. It just didn't speak to me as much as other people. It's not even like I didn't like it, but it was sort of like, what
well, you said it when you said the genius friends of ours thought this song was great, but you don't necessarily gravitate toward it. I think you explained it all right there.
Yeah, there you go. Yes. And so, but what's funny about it is it's not even like it's lost on me. It speaks to other people in a way, like Trav said, I think it's a nice song and I get it. And I even get it technically why it's great. Then it just started becoming Dale doesn't quite, what don't you like about it? I'm like, nothing. And then pretty soon he was like, all right, I'm just going to buy into this. I hate this stupid song.
Right. It's because everybody loved that song so much that it started becoming overwhelming. Like, well, why don't you like it as much, Dale? Well, what's the deal,
what I
Dale?
get, and a lot of the time it's like, oh, well, it's a slow song. A drummer's not going to like that. Even though a couple of the albums, my favorite song is the slowest song,
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's our Stuart Copeland Sting grudge thing.
Right. Yeah. Right. So that to me is that's a very, it may not be obvious, but that's a very Steve Morris influenced song. That's a song based off of a certain thing,
like off of that record,
like Steve does. But and then live, the idea, another example of what happens in this song. It's not quite as complex and it's a slower song, but the idea that I start the song with this guitar arpeggio and then live, the second verse, Jen takes over the guitar arpeggio on bass. Which is an idea taken from Highland Wedding when Steve Morris Band used to do that live, and Dave would play the Highland Wedding part on bass after, Steve started it on guitar. So that theory of how to do a song like this live was part of it. But I loved the idea of being able to continue to overdub and overdub and overdub and have these kind of trickling, cascading guitar melodies. And this is one of those songs that, I think Jen must have come up with the term or the title Dreamcatcher, right? But
I come up with all the titles, dude. What are you talking about?
Well, Dale and I come up with titles. We just don't ever end up using any of them.
Well, okay. That's fair to say. Yes, a couple of others I have jotted down were Delicate Balance, which is that might have been one of your guys' titles where I'm like, anyways. Divine Hush is another one. And then Dreamcatcher. I think that it does have a little bit of a, I don't want to say Southwest vibe, but it has something a little bit, yeah. A little bit, that I'm totally spacing out on the Steve Morse record with Too Many Notes and Highland Wedding and all of that. What record is that?
High Tension Wires kind of thing.
Yes. It has that kind of warm, like not south, a little southwesty. Anyways, so I think that's why the Dreamcatcher. And again, it was such a pretty song. And like I said earlier, such heavy times. And the concept of the Dreamcatcher taking away all the bad dreams, it was just, that seemed to fit really well.
This is a good joke. What? Golden Showers wasn't a good enough title? That's a good joke. That's
probably in there somewhere.
No, that would have been Kip's title, though.
Yeah, right.
Right. Dale and I aren't that crude. Dale and I have a more respectable sense of humor. But you could definitely see weird. Kip or Gino coming up with that.
Well, Kip will introduce the crude thing, and then when you match his crudeness, he's mortally offended all of a sudden. It backs way off, and you're like, "Wait, whoa, yes. Whoa!"
Exactly.
Yeah. He's like, "Oh, come on, geez, oh, geez."
You remember in First Blood where he's talking about Rambo, and he goes, "To learn to ignore pain, to eat things that'll make a billy goat puke." Well, Kip is kind of like the guy that's learned to say things that'll make a billy goat puke. But then if you say anything back to him, he's just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey. You're like, what? You funny. Started it.
Devin and I used to I won't get too far into this, but he would say something, oh my God, did you think anybody's ever whatever, and Devin and I will be in the back. It was like, of course, dude, there's 7 billion people on the planet. And it's like, well, oh, really? You think? And we're like, dude, look on the internet. It's like going to be a whole corner of the internet for this. And then he's like, oh my, I don't want to talk about it anymore. I don't want to, but he brought it up.
Right. Exactly. He started it. So right, anyway,
good song.
I will say, musically speaking, back to Dreamcatcher, one thing that people wouldn't necessarily notice unless you start trying to learn the song is how strategic, much like most of our songs, the kick and the bass are. Like the way they fall on and off of the one and off of the accents, the key changes. So it creates, the way I like to compose sometimes is I'll write like an arpeggio progression, and then I have you guys landing in different spots, and this is a perfect example of that. There's a lot of that going on, and it's very subtle in the mix to where sometimes you don't really notice it, but it doesn't sound right if it's not performed correctly live.
Right.
Yeah,
I always love when we miss some of those. Dale shake his head like,
I know. Always one of us will always miss one. Normally it's me now, but for a while it was usually you, and then it was usually me, and most of the time it's me now. But forget. We'll just space out because it's the same section, but we're gonna syncopate it differently as a rhythm section.
Right. Chelsea says, Chelsea's here. Hi, Chelsea, and she says I play that on piano. Are you talking about you play Dreamcatcher on a piano?
Wow.
If so, I must hear this at some point in my life, because that would be awesome. If not, are we talking about golden showers or whatever?
No.
Whatever.
Chelsea just joined. Come on.
Sorry, Chelsea.
Dale, you were in the middle of saying something. Can you please continue?
I was going to say a couple things. One is it's a slow song to be that off balance. When you and I land on the end of 2 and the end of 4 instead of on 1 and 3, it's you really have to be committed, and you can't sort of sleepwalk it because it just gets really weird feeling really fast. And I think both of us sort of really buckled down on that. And the other thing I was going to say was...
That's what I think... I don't mean to interrupt you now. That's what I think is you might find annoying about the song is it's when you feel like you can kind of just sleep your way through, but then you can't. So it's kind of annoying because you're like, I'm playing this slow, simple, but beautiful song, but I have to totally pay attention and use my brain. And
that's true. And also, I remember thinking I was going to be more textural about it. And I remember clearly that that's not what Travis was hearing, and we kind of had the conversations, and so I left a lot of this space in there, and I thought with a lot of texture it would sort of smooth that out, and now it's just really stark, and it's cool. I think that's what its appeal, part of what its appeal is, but it's just a lot about this song I wasn't hearing, and now I totally get it. But there was a thing too about this is one of, I swear we've talked about. I can't even remember what the song is, but we have that story about messing up that song to where we couldn't recover. Once, I remember this song is one of the few that I tanked so badly. None of us, we were doing a clinic in the Midwest at a guitar center, and it's well attended enough that there's pressure, but there's broad daylight, and people are listening who know what's up, who are guitar players. And I went into the chorus and just suddenly went, it's not really halftime. It's not really double time. It's kind of this half and half. And I never thought it through. And I got in my head and I lost the click and I lost everything and tanked the song. And it was just a disaster. And there was no quitting it. And it was totally unexplainable why I would screw up the song so badly. And afterwards, people going, that was so great. And we're all just going, I'm never going to, I just want to crawl under a rug.
Right.
Anyway, just to bring Chelsea up to speed. First of all, Chelsea said "Country Colors," so that's a great song.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That's, but she said, "What album is Dreamcatcher on?" We're talking about Sound Mind tonight, Chelsea. Since it's your just joining us, so we're up to Dreamcatcher, and if you go back and watch later, we talked about the artwork and all that kind of stuff and what led into the album. So
what's next though?
Yeah.
What's next is, well, we're doing fine actually. Last time we went 2.5 hours.
Well, come on, I got eggnog to drink.
What?
I'm kidding.
Eggnog?
Can we come over? Cartoon Justice. Oh, no. I'm sorry. I'm wrong. Fuzzy.
Yep.
Fuzzy.
All right. how is it that that's the clip?
Right.
Well, I think we actually wanted to get part of the song in there instead of just the solo.
Yeah. Well, that was disappointing in my opinion.
Well, so the deal with Fuzzy, for those of you that don't know, is this is the Dave LaRue guest spot song. And he played the solo, although we've done it live with him many times where he played the whole tune because it was kind of weird. But I will say the definitive live performance of this song that was true to the whole thing was, and Chelsea was there, I think, was when we played Vinny's in Concord, California, like East Bay Area, California. And Dave was on tour opening up for us, and he came up just for the solo of that song. Like, so Jen's playing the song, and then he walks out, just plays the solo, and then walks off.
Nice.
Yeah. And what was so great about it was the green room for that club is next door. So we're on stage, and there's windows on the side of the club there that you could see out to the sidewalk. So you could see LaRue with his wireless pack and his bass walking up the sidewalk of the street, because you have to come in the front door on the side there and come up the side of the stage. So you see LaRue walking up. He's so well timed, you know. Like we're in the chorus before the solo, and we're like, oh, I don't see him, and like, oh, here he comes. Literally walking up the street, walks in, walks up on stage, plays the solo, turns around, walks back off, goes back down the street to the green room. So that was fantastic. That was like the most legit, you know, two bass player performance of that song. But so that was a tune. You know, we'd been talking to Dave like for years and years. At that point, we'd actually been friends with Dave for a long time, and always just kind of talking about maybe we could do some kind of guesting, you know, back and forth and stuff. And so the whole idea of that song was it sounded like something that Dave LaRue doesn't play on normally. Like I wouldn't have put Dave LaRue on something like, say, like Rise and Fall, which, you know, has very kind of Steve Morris-esque kind of sound to it in many parts. But to have something that I've never heard him play on, you know, which sounded, so we called it Fuzzy, obviously, because it sounds like a 70s cop show theme, you know.
The only other title I have written down is The Fuzz. So it was that from the beginning, you know, the cop theme, you know, 70s cop show. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that was, Chelsea says no one had any idea who he was. That's what's funny, right? Like,
that's great. Dave LaRue shows up, and that is great.
So anyway, that's part of that category of songs we were talking about last week with there's a TLB aspect to our tunes that has that Mike Post cop soundtrack from the 70s and 80s vibe to it that I was absolutely influenced by that whole thing, and by like Larry Carlton kind of thing, you know. And so so that's what that is. It's same thing with, you know, the like Transcendental Dream would be kind of like the first song that's along those lines, and then Sums, and you know, there's a variety of them out there. Above Below is sort of like that, but maybe a little more over the top, fusiony, little more challenging. But and this song, there's a great live version of it from the Shift Happens DVD, which is on YouTube. That song is on YouTube, I believe. And I remember Jen kills that solo, and I remember being at this is like, I don't remember what year this was, but it's like 10 years ago, 8 years ago, I don't know. But we were at a Joe Satriani show at the Wiltern in LA that Steve Morris Band was opening. And during sound check, I'm downstairs. I'm downstairs hanging out with Steve Morris, and I hear that bass solo being played up on the stage. And that's one of those moments where, you know, Jen and Dave, every time they see each other, they kind of compare notes on the solo. It's like, well, do you play this part that way or this way? You know? And so I'll listen. I'm like, oh, that's the solo off of our record, you know? And Steve looks at me and he goes, is that Satch's band, or am I go, actually, that's LaRue. And he goes, how do you know? I go, because that's a solo off my record.
Nice.
My song.
He goes, oh, geez, I should probably get up there then. It sounds like they're getting ready to check.
Yeah. I think I was already up there. Dave was, so
Well,
what do you think about
yeah, you guys are up there comparing notes on the solo to Fuzzy, but
right. Yeah, I remember when Dave sent that solo over, well, like you were discussing, and I remember hearing that and go, I'm never going to be able to play that. He can't use that. I'm never going to be able to do that. So, yeah. Thanks a lot, LaRue.
Anthony says, I mentioned the Mike Post thing. It makes a lot of sense. I was going to say too, the harmonies, when you listen to the chorus of that the harmonies are all Rhodes piano. There's a lot of Rhodes on that song. Kind of since then, there's been a lot more and more Rhodes on everything. But I always, that was a cool way to mix it up to where it wasn't just like a bunch of guitars, just more guitar harmonies, but it gave it kind of a different sound. And so I really like those chords under there. And then the chords with those harmonies is, if you hear just that piano track, it's pretty cool to listen to.
Wayne, more whole notes. Thank you, Wayne. Yes, wow. More whole notes.
Bringing it back.
LaRue would always be like, no, what did he used to say? Stop playing all those whole notes.
So many whole notes.
Like too many whole notes. This song I recorded with, a lot of whole notes. And as we ended up playing it live, I started incorporating all that tapping stuff to make up for the lack of rhythm guitars. I remember Doug Johns. We were just kind of playing it, and I was just playing kind of the bass line like on the record, and I knew it was missing a lot of the counterpoint, doom bat, doom that, all that bits. I knew it. I just didn't have time to learn it. And Doug Johns was like, hey man, you really got to get in there and like do that. And I'm like, I know. And then I did. And so now that song is so fun to play because there's just so much going on. It's like all this little accenty stuff and a bass line, do 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 boop do do boop boop, and
I almost feel like we want to just play this little bit one more time, like right here. So the rhythm guitar with all these.
That do, that all ended up being played on bass live, but on the record.
And that's the best example, I think, in our whole catalog of something that was completely guitar driven that you wouldn't necessarily think would work, that completely works on bass. And you're doing all this two-handed tapping and funk slapping and stuff, right? You're like, you're playing all this stuff and then you're doing this boom, ding, and playing those high parts. You can find this on YouTube if you look up Travis Larson Band Fuzzy.
I love watching the live version of that because it's like you're playing three different styles at the same time, and they're all just perfectly chosen. You have to you don't notice the transitions. There's little harmonics, they're slapping, and there's linear. Yeah, it's so great.
It's really fun to play that song until the bass solo, and then I'm always like, I don't want to play there. I hate soloing, so it's fun.
But you do a great job at it, and you do it a little different than Dave. You play, so he plays that line that diddle 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 diddle.
He does that all on fretless too,
Right. But Jen's hands are real small, so it actually, what's interesting is like live, it almost seems more impressive looking when you do it because you do all this two-handed stuff to hit all those notes because your reach is shorter. But doing it that way almost makes it seem like you're more showing off when reality with you, it's a necessity. You know?
Just can't do it.
That's one of the things throughout the years, we have those little band things that come up more time and time again with people that see the band for the first time, or you see new people just starting to become familiar with us. And one of the things that comes up is, Jen's two-handed stuff. They're always like, when you see the people online that always talking shit, it's like, she doesn't need to be using two hands for that part. You could play that with one hand. And it's like, she can't play it with one hand because her hands are this big. So they think you're doing it to be flashy like Billy Sheehan or something, when in reality you're doing it because that's the way you have to do it, because your hand only stretches so far, which I think is cooler.
That's one of those I remember when we were recording, I was trying to think of cool things to do to keep the verse moving along. And then once it took life in a live way, it wasn't me trying to push along anymore. It was just me trying to give it space and be as accurate as I possibly could. Because really, you're doing like so much of the fun rhythm section stuff in those verses, especially.
There's a lot of percussive stuff. Yeah. There's a lot of percussive rhythm section-y stuff in there. And,
so it's like my job is just not fuck it up with a kick drum in the wrong place.
We should play that one again. That'd be fun. Okay, what's next?
Yep.
James Tejada just showed up. Hey James, we're talking about Sound Mind tonight. We're almost done. You'll have to go back and watch the rerun.
Yep. Yeah. By almost done, you mean we got 6.
Cartoon Justice.
Yes. Oh, brother.
Now we're into
my title.
So this is a tune never played live, but I've been checking it out a lot lately, and I think this might definitely have to make it into the next tour as a song that's never been done. But it's been one of the biggest requests we've had since this record came out. But who wants to explain what Cartoon Justice is?
That Dale's right. That is your title. I have no recollection of.
I know exactly what it is, but if you want to explain it, Dale.
To me, there's some part, and I think it's one of the little quick solo drum licks that just it's over the top and it sounds cartoony. And there's a cartoon phenomenon where you get smacked in the face with a frying pan, and your head looks like a lollipop. And this, in my mind, there's this line that goes, and it ends with and it's something funny about it. And then we left it in. It just seemed like it was a bombastic fill. And in my mind, it was like, it just seemed cartoony. And that's Cartoon Justice was.
But you remember what Cartoon Justice actually is. So Cartoon Justice is the fact that you can get thrown off a cliff and fall 300 feet and splat on the ground and then put your finger in your mouth and reinflate yourself and you're fine.
Oh.
That's Cartoon Justice. Like you're like, and all of a sudden everything's okay. It's a cartoon.
Okay.
It's all okay.
So when I was saying that title, I think what I was saying also was like Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote is all like, getting away with stuff and trying to, I don't know, like there's karma that comes back to the coyote. And also there was a point where that fill that ended with a bell, it just kind of is funny because it's like, ding, and it reminded me too of in Roadrunner cartoons, there's a thing that falls off a huge Grand Canyon. Like, instead of a, it's funnier because it goes, it's really quiet. And like that, and we've talked about that. That's a funny thing where the control room at the cartoon studio, it got gated out because it was supposed to be big, but it was funny or quiet.
Right.
And we entertained the idea of the end of that fill being louder, but it was funnier being weak.
Right.
So anyway, all those things, it just was a good phrase.
Yeah.
I remember this song was such a pain in the ass. And based on my notes, I normally have written down all of the song structure, like intro, verse, chorus, times 2, verse times 3, bridge, all of this stuff. This song literally just says intro, and then there's nothing else, as though I just gave up on it.
Yeah.
And then the other song titles, the devil song, because it was just so perfectly like evil trying to get through it. And then significant pickle.
Huh.
Do you remember that? Because it was such a pickle to get through it. And it was like, it's a significant pickle though. Anyway,
that's funny.
Cartoon Justice went out on.
Also something you don't want to look up on the internet.
Yeah, probably.
There's a thing that I yeah, don't Google
I think
that.
significant pickle is a really great phrase.
There's a
meaning conundrum. Go ahead, Dale.
I'm sorry, I was flashing on another possibility too. I at some point, was it Cowboy Justice because it had a big swagger, and then it became Cartoon Justice? Anyway, because it does kind of remind you of Yosemite Sam. It's all Warner Brothers cartoons in my mind. Yeah. But so there's a thing that Neil Peart used to do early in Rush. Like in my mind, the end of Jacob's Ladder is this thing where they do this forever. Geddy and Alex will just vamp, and basically the drums play it every single way it could possibly be played. You know, it's like da 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 da, and then like offbeat, on beat, displaced by a quarter note, displaced by an eighth note, and this song reminds me of that. And I remember when we were learning the song, going, "Am I just overthinking it and make it unlistenable because I'm doing that early Neil Peart thing where, like, the first verse is one way, and then the next one is displaced by an eighth note, most of it, and the next one's different again." And I remember trying to undo it and realized, oh, that wasn't me at all. The writing, the verses sound so similar, but they're not. You have to learn each one in its entirety because they're not, for us, they're not the same at all. Like,
right.
And it wasn't me doing it. Like the writing, Trav's song, like forces you into that. But for a second, I thought I was trying to be clever, and then I went, "Oh, there was no other way to do this. These are three different verses that the crowd is just going to think are the same."
Yep.
But you have to learn each one all the way through.
Thanks, Travis. Why do you keep doing that to us?
That's the key. That's the key of TLB, is to write things that people think are simple until you try and learn them.
There should be a montage of me complaining about how.
But the beauty is when you're playing it in another 20 years, you're still challenged by it.
Very challenged.
Yeah. It's not like, it's not like playing, Sympathy for the Devil or something where you're just like, really, again? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the idea anyway behind making stuff interesting for both us and listenable for people, Yeah.
I had a student learn this song.
Oh, wow.
And I was going to okay, well, I'll show you how to do the first verse, and then we'll basically I'll teach you what the tweaks are to get the next one. And I went, and then pretty soon I had 5 pages of crap written all the way out because every single note had to be written. It was gnarly. And then he learned it.
Wow. Including the drum fills at the end and all that stuff.
Yeah. I think he performed it at a recital.
Wow. I wish I would have seen
before I had any good cameras. Anyway, go ahead.
All right. Would you believe?
Oh.
So that's straight up, again, Jeff Beck to the bone, right?
I love.
I'm literally playing. I'm playing that tune. I'm basically trying to make my guitar sound like a horn as best I can. Which to do that, I roll the tone control almost all the way off to where at least you can hear some note. And I'm playing with my thumb, and not the nail, but just the meat of my thumb, but way back towards the back, and getting the strings to vibrate almost like they would on a fretless bass. So they buzz. You want the strings to buzz to play that song. You want it to go brr, 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 and actually swell, and then
resonate.
That way, yeah. And then there's a section in that song where Jen and I play that part exactly the same time, exactly the same way, an octave apart. So we want it to almost sound like one instrument. I remember that being a thing, and then that's just one of those groove songs again. That's basically trying to be as touchy-feely as I can with the Jeff Beck vibe, and Dale having a really, really cool groove. And then I'll let you go ahead, Dale, and then I'll talk about production-wise. I remember the one big thing that Jen and I fought for.
Okay. I love the song. To me, I love this song the way I'm supposed to love Dreamcatcher. But so what I love about this song is it's so ethereal and sparse. And I remember it was so easy to play too much on the drums, and like anymore. And it went from ethereal and floaty to sexy. And then it seemed kind of silly. It was like a chef from South Park song. Like
it's like, oh yeah.
Yes. I'm gonna lay you down by the fire. And so but it was weird. Extra note, and it just turned sexy instead of real floaty. And here's the other thing I remember about this song. And I hinted at this last week on one of the songs. Your ability to keep your place in an odd time signature, that solo is so legato, and I don't know how you feel your way through it. I remember playing it, and I really loved the demo solo, and I'll let you talk about that, but I really loved the solo on the demo, and I was playing that and playing it, and I started really getting into it, and I could never keep my place if I really connected to the solo. It was too much for me to think in both places. And I was like, I remember saying, there's a genius to being able to float over that stuff. And it seems like, I don't know if it would make an impact on people or not, but trying to play that groove while appreciating your solo was, I couldn't do it. And I just had to get the song recorded and then enjoy it. So I don't know how you float over those things, but those are my thoughts on this song. And sonically, we got a really kind of loop-like sound. I remember using a bundle stick on the hi-hat and a real stick on the snare. And so there was some sonic considerations. And I've been asked if that was a sequenced drum part, and it's not. We somehow got those sounds real. Like when I hear it, I'm surprised. All right, that's my piece.
Well, I remember the chorus. So there's this old school R&B thing going on too. Like it's almost like this old school R&B 60s love song vibe. And so we've got two harmony trumpets, one on the left and one on the right, that come in and fade in there. Those parts that are like wah, wah, do 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 do, right? And I remember Jen and I, that was a big thing with us.
Classical brass H16. In case you need to know which patch it is. Classical
brass.
Nice.
Okay. So that's the Kurzweil Ensemble is what that is.
16.
Which, sorry people, we didn't actually hire a real trumpet player because you got to do things in the moment sometimes. But so I remember in the mix down and Jen and I wanting that louder and louder and louder, and the opposition saying it sounds, turn it down, turn it down, turn it down. Am I right?
Was I in the opposition, or
you and Kip were on the opposition?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow. I don't even remember that. So I guess good thing you didn't follow me.
But that's one of the coolest parts of it, because it's organic sounding and it's hidden enough to where it's just part of the support. Kind of like the trumpets in Burn Season, right? It's this thing that you don't really notice unless you're looking for it. But we wanted it to be almost getting up there to where, it wasn't subliminal. We wanted it to be like a big solid pad for the guitar, right? And that's also one of those songs where you guys have messed up kick and bass patterns that sound super simple, right? Like we always have these hits where there's different patterns of hits throughout the song that you guys learn that are composed through. And it always sounds like just a groove. You could probably get away with just a groove, but it wouldn't be nearly as interesting, right?
Yeah, the song is in 7/8, and it does not feel like that. It feels very natural and normal, and I think that has to do with the placement of the kick and bass.
Yeah. When you say the kick in bass, you're saying the kick and bass, not the kick and bass.
Yeah, right.
Yes. The other song, I hope it's not lame. I keep bringing up all these other song titles. Just all I have to contribute right
now. No. It's great.
In Due Time, which I think was sort of a reference to the odd time signature, and that it's so a slow burning. We'll get there in due time,
Hang on, baby.
Small World. I'm not sure. I think this song just always had this feeling of like big expansiveness, but at the same time, it felt really connected and close, and like this is a beautiful, beautiful, great song, and it just evokes a lot of, for me, like I said, bigness, but then also tightness and like family and shit like that. So I forget how we decided upon Would You Believe. I think that just
I'm gonna ruin the vibe.
Because
I know Jen and I, amongst ourselves, and it sounds like a really nice romantic title, but we would always be like, "Would you believe?"
Right.
And so to ruin the vibe, yes, I saw somebody quote it earlier in a way that was referencing Get Smart, but it's it's a Get Smart quote is what it is, but it sounds like a romantic title. So
Would you believe?
Would you believe?
So anyway. I thought you would mention, Travis, now correct me if I'm wrong, is this a guitar solo that survived the production and it was the demo guitar solo? I thought this was one of those songs.
I can't remember.
I'm almost sure it was. Because I remember loving that solo, and then I think it survived through. I thought
I might have had to relearn it to do it right. I can't remember, but the only one I remember specifically is the one off of what's the song off the Annika that we always talk about?
Mercy Springs, I think.
Mercy Springs. Mercy Springs is absolutely a solo on the outro of that was played one time on the demo.
I remember when you said that, I immediately thought, Would You Believe, last week in the webcast. Maybe I'm wrong, though. I think I did.
Maybe this was something that came from the demo, but I guarantee you I played it a billion times. You know what I mean? So it might have been a demo solo that got taken to the album, but it wasn't
That's
like
what I mean.
Yeah. So that's probably true. It sounds really harsh to me now that I listened to it, because I listened to it just last week, looking at it as something to maybe bring back,
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I mean, I don't mean harsh like in a bad way, but that's an edgy guitar tone that we had to tame.
Sounds raw.
I can hear the compression that we put on it to take off the super high frequencies, because it's a little bit piercing,
Mm-hmm.
I remember that, and I remember specifically Kip, like we gotta rein in that high end, and I can actually hear the compression distorting a little bit on those super high notes, like peaking out, where it sounds a little rough.
I like it. I like it because it counters the whole smoothness of the song. Yeah. Anyway,
I like it a lot.
Yeah. All right.
Should we move on?
Yes, we gotta go. We're gonna go over way long time.
No, we did that last week. We're not gonna go over way long.
What is it?
Forest for the Trees.
Oh boy.
Only 6 songs to go.
Oh my God, Travis.
So my take on Forest for the Trees, and those that know the song, there's many other sections that are completely different than what we just heard. It goes through all these weird hills and valleys, but not my favorite song. I like it a lot. Not my favorite song, but the most TLB song, potentially. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I can listen to that and no, there's nothing that came from something else in that song. I'm not listening to any. I mean, people know what I mean when I say that. Obviously, everything you play comes from somewhere else and something you were influenced by, but there's no specific this. I wanted to do a song like this that I heard this guy do.
Right.
It's just what it is. And the progression for that goes back to Jen and I in high school, and it was completely different. And that was the last of the old stuff that was sitting around on cassette tapes.
Mm-hmm.
The da 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 da, the part that's in kind of the chorus section. That used to be a rock song that Jen and I played, and it was like da 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 da. And it was a fast song, and we took that progression and made it into a ballad. But that progression goes back to her and I in like our senior year in high school, and there's nothing in that song that sounds like this. You know, there's nothing obvious. Like I was influenced by a Steve Moore song here, or a drag song here, or whatever it was. It's just we wrote this thing out of a bunch of stuff that we kind of had in our pocket. And then it became this long, weird kind of Journey song, not Journey the band, but A Journey. And it some of it almost sounds, this could be sacrilege. I don't know how this would come off, but it's almost like there's a weirdness to it that's almost like a Dave Matthews vibe.
Huh.
You know what I mean?
I could see that, but I never would have thought that.
To some of it, and not the part we just heard, but like some of the faster sections, but that's a song that's just, that is a TLB song through and through. Like that is a very TLB song to me. It's personally.
Yeah.
And
sorry, I keep on jumping in right after Trav. Do you have thoughts, Jen?
Go ahead.
This became one of my favorite songs to play live, which surprised me because it was such a hard puzzle to solve to record. I remember getting this early in the demo process and just sitting there and trying to just absorb it and then trying to figure it out. And it was one of those weird songs where you couldn't just count and make it work. I could, but when I got it all charted, all the time signatures looked like they were just the main, there would be a 16 measure section and it would be a bunch of different time signatures, but even that wasn't even, it was like 3 measures of this and 1 measure of this and then 2 measures of that. And I would just look at it and I just couldn't, it was just weird. And then some combination of time sitting with it and being it all written out, it was so gratifying to solve this. I was so happy when I could play it and get done. And I thought it would be too stressful to play live, but it became one of my favorite ones. And part of the reason I think is, like, it's fusiony enough that it doesn't lose a bunch if we're not playing loud. If we're playing like a small venue,
right?
And if we're playing loud, it still translates.
It's powerful, but it's melodic.
Yeah, like it's one of the few songs that I can always access what I'm emotionally. I can always access some emotion on this song. Sometimes we're playing shows and I'm just holding back a lot. And the powerful songs are a bit of a cold shower if I'm trying to control things too much. And then, but it's not so busy like a real jazz fusion-y thing. It's just one of those songs I can always play the way I want to play it. Knock on wood. I'm going to butcher it next time we play it live. And I just remember it was so complex too, that I just constantly learn new things about the dynamics of it. Like I always understood something new about it.
I'll tell you what, anyway. And based on what you just said, I've been doing it in some of the live stream shows, and I just came up with a way to play a part smoother than I used to play it live, because it's a transition that doesn't exist on the record. It's an overdub. And so live, I have to hang a note just long enough to sound like I don't cut the note off. And then I have to get into a clean arpeggio section. And I just changed the way I do that from the way I've been doing it for like 9 years.
Right.
Like I'm still learning how to do it, but I started doing it that way. I'm like, okay, I need to do it this way. So what happens is there's a melody with the distorted guitar, and then on the one, the melody hangs over and the clean arpeggios come in underneath it. And what I've started doing is hanging the note instead of chopping it and going to the clean arpeggios. So live now, I'm going to try hang the note and then come in on the clean arpeggios on the second chord, so that Jen will infer the first chord on bass. You'll still hear it in your head. Like people that know the record, they won't miss it. And sonically, it actually sounds better with the distorted guitar hanging and dying a little bit, instead of like doing all this, stuff where it's like da 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 click diddly 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 diddly, and it's like very stark, the change between two settings. So now I'm kind of hanging, and as it dies, I click into the clean arpeggio, and so
nice.
But that's the kind of thing where it's you still, even 9 years later, you're still learning how to play something better for a show.
Yeah, the song's a trippy journey.
Hopefully by 2022, I'll remember that.
I absolutely love this song. I always have. It's always one of my favorites. And yeah, to play it live is always fun and challenging. And we always look at each other and like, are we going to remember this? Because it is another one of those songs where no part is the same as the last.
Yeah.
Everything has a freaking extra measure here, extra note there. Yeah, it's kind of a nightmare. And I think that's how the title came about, where it was like forest for the trees. Like you can't just look at this as a big thing.
That's right.
You have it. You had to look at all of the individual things. And I mean, I guess that's sort of the opposite. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I do. Yeah.
When you look at it as just one big song, it sounds, oh yeah, that's a great big song. But when you're like playing it, there's so many little components, and it was, I love playing. It's always a really cool mental and physical challenge playing this song. I've always loved this song. So
there's the picture of us laughing on stage, Jen, which I don't think I'm going to find now.
Mm-hmm.
But I won't have time to find it. But there's a picture of Jen and I actually have hung up in the office. It's like one of my favorite pictures of us, where we're both like, just our mouths are as wide as they can be, and we're laughing our asses off. That is a freeze frame that's not in the DVD from the last note of this song. Like,
they got through it.
Yeah, because we got through it. We edited it out of the DVD. Like the DVD pans away and you see like us on stage or something. But the close-up shot of us was us laughing our asses off and looking at each other, just like, holy shit. Like we just pulled that off because we knew there's like 9 cameras running and we're recording, and this song is like very apt to be a train wreck, Yeah. And so that was one of the
shift happens very soon, and oh my God, what a nightmare. The other title here, which I think is pretty good too, is If Memory Serves.
Oh yeah.
Because that was the other thing about this song. You had to remember so much of it. You couldn't just like tag back to what you did just a minute ago. You had to keep searching forward, so I don't know. If Memory Serves is the other title.
And one of the things I noticed about the song is you have to trust your memory too. You can't just force yourself through it all. There's too much to remember. You can't possibly retrain it all. So you have to sort of keep engaged, but trust your memory to work for you when it's time.
If memory serves.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
This song, by the end of this song, I feel like the end harmony is so triumphant sounding that it's almost a little goofy. And that's one of the reasons that I think we laugh sometimes. But like, I've always felt a little self-conscious about it because it's so epic. It's almost like we just wrote the soundtrack to the next Rocky movie. It's like it's almost a little cheesy,
A little Falcory.
It's funny. Gino says, do you remember me telling you how nuts you were for playing this live?
Yeah.
And again, it's another one of those songs that to the listener probably doesn't sound like much at all. I mean, it's not overly complicated. It's not overly technical, but it kind of is, there's a lot of, you and I do a little duet, unison thing where it's like, and I'm playing all the bridge. And then I don't know if I did it on the record. I can't remember, but picking up a bunch of the rhythm guitar parts live where I'm like, I mean, it's again, not overly technical, but because you have to remember every little note, oh wait, I don't play that note on this verse, I play it on that verse. And it's kind of challenging, but to the listener it's probably like, oh yeah, another pretty little song.
Right. And I'll mention to people too, this the merch page on the website has a section where back in those days, we're kind of revisiting this 9 years later, but there's a section where I talk about each song, like when we're still in the studio finishing them.
Oh yeah, right.
Let's move on here. But this, I will point out, see here where it says in the listening room. You guys can see this, right?
Yeah.
So if you go to the merch page, you click on in the listening room here, and it takes you to a whole series of videos, one for each song. So you can check that out. All right, next song, What's What?
Oh, brother.
That's a good title.
So,
man, that's a really great song too.
Jeff says I've been waiting for this. I don't know if he's talking about just the whole podcast or that song, but okay. So
I'm gonna let you. I have to go potty. Yeah. I'm gonna let you guys do your thing. I'll be back.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
So I'll talk about first of all the production of What's What, and the I talked about this Ernie Ball amp bag thing that I have. It's called an amp bag, which they don't make them anymore. It was kind of a novelty thing they came out with as a promo when this record came out. And it's a soft case for your guitar, and it's got like 2 little speakers in it, like little 3-inch speakers, and like a little like faux Marshall amp. And it's basically what it is like an iPod amplifier, like you would put on your desktop, but it's sewn into this guitar case, and you can actually get distortion out of it. It runs on 9-volt battery. You can plug into it. It's just a dry distortion. And so to prove that you can make a good sound out of anything, which is what I talked about last week, kind of the Steve Morse theory of, you don't have to have a wall of Marshalls to make something sound like a wall of Marshalls. So I have this amp bag, and I mic'd these little 3-inch speakers, and I recorded all the rhythm tracks for this song on those 3-inch speakers and panned them left and right with different guitars and slightly different tones. And so the huge wall of sound, and the reason the song's called What's What is because we thought it sounded a lot like The Who with the big open chords, totally doing like a Pete Townsend thing, and then the obvious Rush influence of the other bit. So taking those huge open Pete Townsend chords and knowing that you recorded them with this teeny little practice amp, but this song is such a huge wall of sound, that was like the little production secret of this tune was using like the absolute lamest thing you could find to amplify a guitar and getting a great guitar tone out of it, just to prove that it's not about the gear, it's about the ear and the fingers and the player and all that stuff. You can have really minimal gear, like a 9-volt practice amp sewn into a guitar bag, and you can make a huge wall of sound, song. So that was the production on that song. As far as the parts go, like I mentioned, there's the obvious Rush influence, there's obvious Who influenced, and then melody wise, I think of that as kind of a Dregs thing, where I'm tapping. There was a song on Full Circle where the Dregs did a thing where the violin, the fiddle, and the guitar played a melody where they tapped above it. So the top tap note was actually what you would pick on. So instead of going da na 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 na, it's like diddle 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 diddle. So the top note becomes part of the actual melody. Mm-hmm. That was kind of that little technique, as simple as it was as far as a tapping thing, but actually paying attention to what note you were tapping that was kind of stolen from that little bit in Full Circle on the Dregs album, I think. Not the melody itself, but the technique. And then the outro, I don't remember exactly what's going on. I remember Jen's head exploding, like trying to do the outro of this song because it's so jacked up, right?
I don't remember either. I just know it always it had the potential for train wrecks live very often.
Yeah.
And I remember always counting. I don't remember what the counts are anymore. Dale might know, but it was like like you have described, a row your boat thing where it just it was
now, but
I remember mixing this song and just being like, oh my God, what's happening? You know,
what's happening. I don't remember specifics, but what's happening basically is there's an odd number, I think, in the rhythm section and an even number in the melody or something along those lines where every time, so you guys play this riff in circles.
What, 7/8 or something, Dale?
Yeah, I vaguely remember this, where you would play one measure of 7 and 8 and get an 8th note off of us. Is that right? And then you would do it again and then get 2 8th notes off of us and then do it again and just.
So the way I think of it is it's like a wheel and you guys are turning and the melody is me. And every time I land, it's like a roulette wheel where I land on a different number every time.
Yes.
Right. That's kind of the way I picture it when I play it, as I think of it. So you guys are playing like this wheel and I'm playing the melody over it and I land on a different number of the progression until we all land on the one. And that's the last one.
I remember
So it goes on for like a minute and a half or something until it comes all the way around. And then we all land on this big epic power chord harmony. But it's so complicated to figure out.
I remember learning to think it. I remember thinking if I could think Trav's part to what I'm playing, it'd be bulletproof. And instead, I remember just going, this is suicide. I'm using 90% of my neurons. Not going to work every time. And I just started ignoring you. Yeah.
The other part to the equation now, it's coming back to me, is the melody is actually the progression, I think, adding a note every time. So it starts off where it's one note. It just comes wah.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's like wah, wah. And then it's like wah, wah, wah. And it keeps doing that until it keeps adding a note on and on and on. So I don't remember exactly what's going on, but
either do I.
it was weird. And it was really cool. Like I remember it just being crazy. Go ahead, Jen.
Well, and I think the other part of the confusion in that was that it wasn't just Travis going like bing. He did that like bend, like wah. So it added this stretchy aspect. Yeah. So we were playing in, the circle. But he would be like wah, like into it. So it was so stretchy and like always just this, I think, hence the title. Well, I think it was originally like a Who reference, but the what's what, because it was like, what's what? I don't know what's happening right now. What's what? Yeah. I didn't get it. But that was like the Who kind of who are you? Whatever. Yeah, that was when we nailed that live. I was just ecstatic. It was so cool. And I was always kind of bummed. It felt like it didn't come across live somehow. Yeah.
Yes.
And so I think that's why we ended up kind of not doing it. But it was so fun to play because it was so hard. And when we did it, it was just like, yes, we totally pulled that off. And I loved that song. But no, it just never seemed to resonate with people.
The reason it doesn't really grab, I think, live is because it's missing the wall. That I was talking about when you were away. We were talking about the production and the wall and the amp bag.
Right.
But the wall of sound on there doesn't exist live because I'm playing lead, right?
Right.
And we did have it where you actually did play it live with the chords on the bass and everything, but it's still not the same as a guy just putting big open power chords on a guitar.
Sure. Yeah.
You can only assimilate so much of that to bass and still be playing bass. Right. It just doesn't sound the same, So I think at the end of the day, if we do that again, we're either going to have to just decide that we live with it the way it is, or we would have to maybe throw some canned guitar in there. And we have kind of a line with that, That's a little bit maybe over the line. where all of a sudden you're hearing this chicka-ching, and nobody's doing that. So maybe a guest guitarist on a tour or something, we could do that, you know? Like
it's really weird how
like
that. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, go ahead.
That song's so big and powerful too, and it just starts and it hits you over the head, and then it sort of spirals a little softer, and it has that weird, delicate through composed section in the middle, and then there's bass alone almost, except for a little. I didn't listen to the song today, so I might not be describing it well. And then it's like
I forgot about that. The bass solo is actually bass with a bunch of delay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Then you have to, but it's down to almost nothing, and then you have to build it back up again. You start out with this big bombastic thing, take it down to nothing, and then start this process of building it back up. And about the time you have any power, you got to start thinking so hard. It's a weird journey of a song.
Yeah, it is weird. Yeah.
I forgot about the bass break in the middle is Jen doing this tapping thing, and she's got a delay on it that's like a second long.
It would be 130 BPM triplet delay. Just so you know.
Well, there you go. That's what I got. I figured as much.
I just didn't want to sound like I knew, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
But what happens is the bass keeps stacking up, and then I did a reverse power chord on the record. So then it sucks back into the tightness of the chorus, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like it does this whole like, zip, dun, dun, dun. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So,
all
right.
To be good.
Neat song, Travis.
Yes.
Good song. Not a hit.
We gotta go. What's next?
Out of bounds.
Yeah, we always gotta go.
Oh God, out of bounds. Are you serious?
Referencing the last song real quick, Gino said he could play the power bell.
Nice.
To fatten it up. Okay, out of bounds. My favorite bass tone on anything we've ever recorded, and probably my favorite production or one of my favorite productions of a tune. Like just the overall sound of the song itself. It's obviously one of the most simple songs that we've recorded, but it's one of the best sounding, probably because there's less notes to clash in the mixdown.
Right. Right.
But I really love this tune to listen to it. You know, it's like we did play it on a tour, and it's fun to play. I think it went over okay, but it's not the most challenging, interesting song. There's one section in the middle where Jen and I have like the tapping bit, but it's really a song. It's a vibe thing, you know?
Yep.
So, and Dale plays his ass off on that song.
Right.
This is one of those songs.
It's a train beat. It's like, I don't know what the beats per minute are, but it's like but
it has to sound subtle. It can't sound like you're going for it. It has to be all. It's one of those songs. There's always one song that forces you to keep. Well, you guys probably have this too. Like this was one song I had to keep my hands more in shape than I would have had to if the song weren't in the set. And it's also I had to have a second snare. So I'm like, it changes my setup, makes the drum set different, and I got to keep my hands in shape. And then as soon as that song dropped out of the set, I'm like, whoo, all right.
Glenn Hensman totally calls it, by the way. He says Pat Metheny, and that train beat is absolutely influenced by Pat Metheny. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, that's right. There was that song we literally thought of. Well,
where that came from. And that came from my brother having that song and playing it a lot. And I was like,
that's right.
We should do something like that. We've never done anything like that, because you're just thinking of things you haven't done, you know? So it's like we haven't done a train beat.
This was one of those songs where you presented just this totally remnant of an idea, and you're like, "Here, what do you think?" And I'm like, "What do you expect me to do with this? This is nothing."
Yeah, right.
You know? This is nothing. And from there it progressed to, well, what if we did? You know, I mean, oh my gosh, this song was like nothing. I think you were just like, meh, bah, 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 bah. I'm like, what the hell is that?
So you can see that the collaborations,
we're so supportive to your demos.
Sometimes Travis will present this thing and he's like, so like, no, it's an idea. No, do here. And I struggled with this song really hard to try and, I mean, we all did obviously, but I was not happy with this song for a very long time. And no, it needs something else. And finally it did get to a place, and yes, everybody ends up loving it. But this was one of those songs where I'm like, that's not a song, dude. That's not a song.
And this is a prelude. This is 2 albums before I really went overboard. But this is the first Moog, and it's very buried. But there's Moog underneath the guitar lead in this. And I always try to make everything sound organic. So it doesn't sound super over the top keyboardy, but this was the first overdub some Moog into a song. And then on Annika, we were kind of gloves off on the 70s prog keyboard thing. And I just said, we're just going to do it. But this was like, is it okay? We were so careful. It's like, just a little bit. Let's mix a little bit in there and make the guitar sound a little more flute-like, Yeah. But that was totally, this is totally a Southwest song. It's totally a Southwest vibe.
I was going to bring up some of the other titles again. We were totally Southwest vibe. And Do You Feel Lucky, which I think is a Clint Eastwood reference, obviously.
So we went to Tucumcari.
Tucumcari, that we were talking about. So that brings up City of the Cross, or Las Cruces was another something. There's a bunch of stuff here. City of the Cross, Las Cruces, Something Wicked, Worlds Apart, North of Midnight, and then Out of Bounds. I think probably, I don't know why we chose that one. Because probably a little bit of like, this song's not okay. It's out of bounds.
Yeah, right. Stay in our fusion lane.
Anyways, those were some of the Southwest titles originally. City of the Cross, Las Cruces, Do You Feel Lucky, Something Wicked, and Worlds Apart.
Wow.
And North of Midnight.
All the titles of our
national vibe. Sorry. You know how when you're driving at night through the desert, you know? Anyways.
Yeah, totally.
You got anything more, Dale, on this one?
Not really. No.
All right.
Good song.
Let's keep moving here. Werner said earlier, do we have any actual pictures of Gus? Because we all know the story, but this is old Gus.
I'll have to find them.
So that is absolutely my favorite and most proud of duet song of anything we've done. Which the irony of it is, Jen's mentioned before that her dad basically, commissioned that song.
Right.
Right. So those that don't know the story, Gus was a black dachshund. So a wiener dog mixed with, I think, a black lab or something like that. Figure that one out. And so he was a really long, slightly middle-heavy dachshund, kind of drug a little bit on the ground sometimes. Little too many snacks for Gus, right? A little portly. Yeah, we could agree that Gus wasn't like the most streamlined aerodynamically. And Gus used to run around Jen's parents' house. They have an island in their kitchen, and he would run around the island on the wood floors and, basically do donuts and slide, and his hands would be ticky-tacking.
His hands?
Or his paws. His paws would be ticky-tacking, and you'd hear him run up one side of the room and then back, and he'd be like, and so when Gus passed away, Jen's dad was brokenhearted, and he asked if I would write a song for Gus. And you look, so we look at each other and think, like, how do you say no, and how do you do this with conviction?
Yeah.
Right? Like, how do you come up with something for your, instrumental fusion album that's a tribute to Gus for Jen's dad, because family's family, and not, come up with something that isn't going to work. So we went the total Steve Morris, Dave LaRue route and wrote this kind of pseudo classical thing. But when you hear the ascending and descending guitar and bass lines, that's Gus running. So that's going back and forth. That's exactly what that is. So that's who Gus was, and that's the song. And someday maybe we'll be able to dig up some pictures, but just picture like a portly black dachshund.
Yeah. Yes. I'll find some pictures for sure.
And generally speaking, like when we used to do this, like, on tour at like a Guitar Center clinic or at like Borders Books and Music, Dale did a fantastic job of selling merch.
Yes. Thanks, Dale.
I remember hearing this story. I will say that you did a good job of writing the song about the dog, because when I heard you tell the story you just told, this song came alive for me a lot more. I'd heard it a bunch. Then I heard the story, and I could totally imagine him now. And I'm like, oh, descending run, ascending run.
Yeah, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So that's old Gus. I'm most proud of that tune. I actually still try and keep up on that tune. That's a really hard tune, and
that's a tough one. Yep.
But it's we've done like, I don't know, half a dozen duet songs on records, and some of them turned out to not be total duets, like the Vinx song and stuff like that. But things that started with performance-wise, with Jen and I playing an acoustic and bass combination at gigs, and that song is, that's the most proud of a song where I go, that song is going to hold up for a long time. I like that song,
Yeah.
So anyway,
Gus.
Moving on.
Magic dog.
Gus the Magic Dog. Yeah. All right. Down on Victory.
All right.
So real quick, Holly said she's got to go.
Bye, Holly.
Bye, Holly. Get some sleep.
Yep.
I gotta go too. Can I go?
No. You already went.
Yeah, right.
So Down on Victory, the first song of 2 in the entire catalog that uses a whammy pedal. That was one of those things that now the whole idea behind it, much like the other song that I used a whammy pedal on, was to make it sound like a Moog synthesizer, not like a whammy pedal. And so the chorus in this song is very much trying to write a melody that confuses whammy pedal for real notes, so that it doesn't just sound like a guy running octaves. There's certain guitar players out there that have created a sound that's very much them, and very much they're famous for using a whammy pedal. And as soon as you start doing that, everyone goes, oh, you sound like that guy. So I was trying to avoid that. And so it's very much more of an influence of something that you would hear like ELP do. I was trying to more sound like Keith Emerson with a guitar than sound like, Steve Vai or Joe Satriani or somebody like that. So, but the reason, I really love the tune is at the end when we do the super high thing. Jen and I thought it sounded totally like a cowboy riding off into the sunset. It's right. It's like some kind of supersonic cowboy song, right?
Right.
But and the rest of it, yeah. And the rest of it is just kind of like a heavy funk tune that sounds like the Streets. So I used to live on Victory Boulevard when I was really little down in the San Fernando Valley, and it was a different Victory Boulevard when I lived there than it is when we've been there since. And so this is kind of, so Down on Victory is in reference to that, and the fact that, you know, Victory Boulevard in certain parts is got a little bit of urban flavor to it these days that didn't necessarily have back in like the mid 70s.
Some cowboy flavor.
Well, it's not really. It's not so much cowboy flavor, no. No, but that your groove, that you know, it's more of like it's more like the movie Colors kind of flavor, you know, something like that, like a heavy urban back in the alleyways thing.
Yeah, but have you ever read The Gunslinger or the Dark Tower series by Stephen King, The Gunslinger? He has like this urban, you could totally hear that music reading that book.
Yeah.
There's always some kind of cool urban element to cowboys. If you,
Gotcha.
Because they got them little things on their heels, the ching-a-ling-a-ling.
Jimmy says, "Lucky Man." Well, yes, that sound. That's absolutely the sound at the end of Lucky Man. Not really the vibe, but you know, Keith Emerson did a lot of that kind of stuff, especially live when he would improvise and they'd play fast stuff and he would do all these crazy lines on Moog. So I was really into ELP there. The reason, the timing of this is that the last ELP show happened in 2010, and a month after that, Jen and I played with Carl Palmer. And so I was really kind of like into ELP there again for a while. I kind of resurged my ELP thing, which I grew up on. And so I was trying to subliminally work some of that into some of our stuff, even though it sounds far from that. That's kind of where the Moogie thing comes. Is Moogie a word?
Does Dale have anything to add to this song?
My main thoughts are, I remember somebody had even advised you along the lines of what you were saying earlier. Like, if you use a bunch of whammy, you're just going to seem derivative of this other person you're mentioning. And then you got inspired to do this, and you're like, well, that'll be part of the challenge, is to do it in a way that is not, you know, derivative of that. The other thing I remember about this was you playing it for me. Like, what do you think of this? Almost, I don't know if you were just gauging my reaction or if you weren't sure whether it was going to do that, whether I was going to say, oh, it's like that guy. But I just remember staring and going, I've never heard anything like that. and then the other one, like you said, being Watchmen, where it's not just
it's just like we,
right.
Yeah.
It was like really interesting to hear, and I didn't know what I was hearing, but I knew I hadn't heard something like it. I wish I had.
For the people that don't understand what a whammy pedal is, Dale and I aren't just like going wee to each other.
Yes,
there's a pedal that you push down that pitches the guitar up an octave or whatever you set it to, and it has a distinctive sound that some people have made theirs. So,
and there was, what else was I going to say? Oh, I wish I'd remember to grab this. I remember the outro of this song is really slippery in this way where it rotates. It's 7, and then it'll be 3 times of 7. And I don't even know if it's times. I'm saying times elusively because I don't know if it's 3 measures or sets of measures, but it's 7, 7, and then 6, and then 7, 7, 7, and then 6, and then 7.
That would always, kind of mess me up a tiny little bit.
It's really weird because it starts on 6, if I remember right. But then when it starts back up, and you're trying to figure out as a rhythm section when to ramp it up.
Right.
And so it seems like it's 6, 7, 7, 7. But later on, when you're figuring out, it really starts to feel like the beginning of the section is on the last of those 7s. You know what I mean? It's almost like the whole section really starts on the second time through, but it doesn't. I don't know. I still don't quite understand what's going on there. And so anyway, that's just kind of interesting. I like it. Right. And I just, and there's just, it's natural to pick the highest point in the melody and make that the beginning, or there's a point where it feels like the beginning of the melody. Right. And it's not where I have the beginning of the section starting.
Right.
And so you and I were making these weird, I almost kind of like mark both of them in a weird way, just to make sure I don't listen. I remember thinking, I don't want to listen back and just feel like I obviously missed this. It's kind of hit both of the spots.
I ended up having to do this weird little dance when we played this live. I
was going to say that.
It's like, it was so hard for me because of the melody that was going on and the thing you're talking about, that I had to do this little, and I hated that.
I remember you getting in the van and going, I do this weird thing with my leg in that song.
Right.
And you were just staring down at your feet going, and if I don't do it, I can't play the song.
The only way I could keep time in this song because of that thing you're talking about. It was so stupid. And I see it on videos now, and I'm like doing this weird little janky hip thing, and I'm like, okay, well, whatever works. Cool.
Yep.
The other titles, Dead Ringer. I think that has to do, I think that was a Deadpool reference.
Okay.
And maybe we thought it was.
When you say Deadpool, we're probably talking about Dirty Harry, not
right
superhero, right?
Oh yeah, Dirty Harry. Yeah. There's something else than the Dirty Harry movie.
Yeah, there's a whole series of Marvel things called Deadpool that the kids are into these days.
Oh, I'm talking about the Dirty Harry movie. Yeah.
Right. Our generation knows the Dirty Harry movie.
Those kids are 30 now.
Just This Once. I'm not sure. There's always some sort of story where it's like, we probably played one part and just this one, who knows what the hell that was.
Gino says, don't you add a note on the third? I know stuff.
Right.
I was going to say real quick, going back a ways, Anthony said Spurs, Jen, they're called Spurs.
I know they're called.
All right. Well, that's it for the band songs. And the last one is Jen's first looping bass solo piece, which is, sorry, I have to go find it. And this is how we close out the album, because as I've mentioned before, I listen to albums when I go to sleep sometimes, and there's nothing worse than listening to something like here's an example. If you listen to Phil Collins, I forget which Phil Collins album it is, but turn it off, not turn it on, but turn it off, turn it off, switch it off. The one with Sting singing backup. Beautiful, really like slow, ethereal song. You start to fall asleep. And then the next song and the last song on the album goes, so in an effort to not do that to people, we ended with this. Should I answer it? It's my dad.
I was going to say that's a kooky end of the song there. I like the marimba part.
Must have ended. I'm not sure I should answer it this time. No, we talked to Dad last time he called in the middle of the show. We're close enough to being done. I'll bet you he gave up and then is calling thinking the show's over.
Yeah, I'll bet you. Probably that's what happened.
So that was the first thing that we'd ever put on a record in place of a duet, essentially.
Even though we did do a duet on this record, but yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's why this has been a long episode, because this is a long record. There's a lot of songs on this, right?
Again, this was a really intense record. A lot of intense songs and a lot of intense emotions, and just this Hutch, I guess. Yeah, I think I was fooling around with some ideas, and Travis was sort of saying, well, let's mess around with that and see what we can do with it and this and that. And again, as I'd mentioned earlier, with everything going on in my life, it seemed sweet and fitting and sort of a way to, I don't know, like express, I guess,
Greg says a preview to Grace to Wonder. I would say kind of.
Yeah, I wasn't entirely thrilled with the sounds I got, and it was what I like Dale. I struggle in the studio with Kip a lot because he has his ways of thinking about things, and I'm always trying to describe what I'm looking for, and we end up coming to a middle ground. And sometimes you just have to go, yeah, okay, I'm good with that if you're good with that. And he is another artist, and like Travis always says, the fourth member of the band is your engineer, and at some point you have to concede a little tiny bit. And yeah.
Well, the fourth member of our band is our engineer. It's not always that way, but.
Well, yeah, I'm just, yes, that's what I'm referring to. And I wasn't entirely happy with everything, but it was cool enough. And I think everyone agreed it was cool. And so, yeah.
Did you play that live?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember thinking that seemed like a real hard thing to pull off live to me. It was just the way it wove together, and the way it sounds like it could just be all freeform, but it's not like lockstep, but you kind of had to get everything in the right spot. I don't know. I just remember thinking, and there's so much switching and thinking, but it's got to be just all vibe. I remember thinking that would be hard.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that the little tapping chord progression is something that you had that's been around a long time, right, Jen?
The da 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 thing.
No, the actual. Yeah, do. Like that was something that was something you would sit there in the corner of the room, kind of do that, and so, this was it wasn't even a necessarily like Grace to Wonder was more of a let me try and say compose something, and this was more of an organic thing where you had that, and it was one of those things sticking around for a while. And I think what we did was looped it, and I just said, just play over it for a long time. And then we went through and just picked out what we thought was magic out of that.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So it was like, just play, just go play. Like I literally remember saying, just push record play. I'm going to go ride my bike.
Right.
And then I come back, and then you got miles of just playing
20 minutes of crap to sort through.
And then you just, pick out like in the inspiring parts and the parts that turned into something beautiful. Right. And, but that's, the other, on a practical level, this would be like the music business level. This was shortly after we had done the UFO tour, and in the middle of that, Jen and I had done Bass Player Live, where Jen didn't really have a lot of Jennifer Young things to do in a context of Jennifer Young get up and entertain a room full of people, right? And so that was kind of the beginning of let's have a few things that Jennifer Young can play that are hers, that are on a record, Because now if Jennifer Young has to play something, there's like, you could do 20 minutes or 30. Right?
Ooh.
Glenn says sublime.
Like there's some stuff that she doesn't do, like we mentioned that you were doing a looping version of School Days, Stanley Clark's School Days. So you do that and a couple of solo bits, and all of a sudden, and then you went out and you did your first clinic tour.
Yep.
And you had, material. So, but at the root of it, that was just something that you were just messing with, from what I remember, for a while.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So that's that is Sound Mind, everybody. And like I said, if you want to hear us talk more about, the more regimented, proper explanations are the video links off of the merch page if you go find Soundmind. But that was kind of the market at the album. This is 9 years later, and us actually like just opening it up and looking at it. So
yeah, what a trip. Thanks for
that was a trip.
Listening to my, overly emotional descriptions of this album.
No, and this is when honestly, this album, it's like, I feel like it's an album that I kind of put away for a while here and there, but it still sticks around. Like I said, I've been playing most of this album on the live streams, like here and there. I still keep most of this under my fingers, and this album is, a lot of it still means a lot to me. So it's like kind of the beginning of like the big boy albums, so to speak, or the albums where I feel like we really did make a real record,
Right.
I remember even right after it was made, I remember telling people that like some combination of the production and the songwriting and our playing all elevated a little bit enough to make this one feel like it stood apart a little bit.
Yeah.
So we will continue to be back. We have a couple more records to get through. So, and just a few weeks left in the year.
Yeah.
Right? Thank you for all the birthday wishes this week, everybody. And thank you to you guys for hanging out with me on my birthday and making me feel like it was a birthday. And everybody that wants to check out Travis Larson Band stuff that you're not familiar with, go to the description of this feed or of this video live stream, and there's links to the new swag. There are links to download music, buy the old swag on the website, all that stuff. And by the way, Christmas is coming, and Jennifer Young's books are still for sale. They're on the merch page on the website, and they are signed. She's signing every book that gets bought from this pressing.
My wrist's killing me.
So if you want a signed book for Christmas, I'm not saying, but I'm just saying, might be a kind of a cool, and you don't have to be a TLB fan even. It's just such a cool visual book of pictures from all over North America and interesting stuff.
Good book.
So anybody that likes just kind of an artistic kind of, have something around on the coffee table vibe to show your friends when they're, waiting for you to come to dinner or something. That's whatever it is, So I'm just throwing that out there. Thank you for supporting everybody. I don't have a camera over here, but I'm going to go play some more James Bond flute because it is the holidays, and I appreciate everybody.
I have a camera taped
out
to the ceiling.
I don't have an instrument. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I think.